Good evening. I'd like to call the November 21st, 2023 meeting of the Select Board to order. We're here in the Town Hall Select Board meeting room. We're also on Zoom, YouTube on the RCTV channel, as well as Verizon Fios and Comcast Xfinity. So just a review of the agenda tonight, we'll have public comment to start, then we'll move to Select Board liaison and town manager reports. At 7:30, we'll have a public hearing to to discuss and vote on proposed traffic amendments at the intersection of Bancroft Ave and Hartshorn Street, and also instituting a 10-minute pickup and drop-off on the southern side of Simon's Way. After that, we'll have a presentation from Jenna Fioranti, Community Services Director, on an ARPA update regarding elder affairs. Then we'll hear from RMLD General Manager Greg Phipps. Then we'll discuss a Community Preservation Act study committee with help of Economic Development Director Ben Tiers. Then we'll discuss and vote on requested changes from the state legislature to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Home Rule Petition House Bill 1341. Then we'll vote on appointing department heads to our town manager screening committee. We'll discuss the appointment of an acting town manager and discuss and vote on the town manager position statement. We'll discuss future agenda items, including our meeting schedule for 2024. We'll approve one set of meeting minutes, and then we'll go into an executive session to approve collective bargaining agreements. And so I'll start with public comment. If there's anyone in the room who would like to provide general public comment, and just to clarify, we'll have a separate public comment period for the traffic amendments. But is there anyone in the room who would like to comment? Okay, hearing none. Caitlin, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to comment?
No one online.
Okay, thanks, Caitlin. So we'll move on to Select Board Liaison and Town Manager reports. And so Karen.
Okay, okay, great. Well, first of all, good evening, everyone. So hot off the presses, the RMLD calendars are out. The first one was given out over the weekend at the senior Thanksgiving dinner. And our former select board member, Ms. Sally Hoyt, was the recipient of the first 2024 calendar. We've got some right here in Town Hall. You'll start seeing them everywhere. Thank you very much. And I would just like to say kudos to all of our staff putting on, let me say kudos to Representative Brad Jones and his sponsors and his lovely wife Linda, and also the rest of our delegation, Representative Haggerty and Senator Jason Lewis, for sponsoring another annual Thanksgiving dinner. When I checked in midweek, they had 170 attendees. It might have been bigger than that. So it was just a wonderful event again, and everyone enjoys it. So I really thank them and all of the sponsors who made that possible. So town meeting was wonderful. Kudos. We were very productive, and it's over. The big event this week would be for the Killam School Building Committee. We had the MSBA designer panel vote today. The panel, which included 3 designees from the town of Reading, was able to come to agreement and vote for LaValle Bressinger to be our designer. So that is a wonderful step forward. And I will let Fidel talk to you about next steps in the process. But I did want to say thank you and kudos to the designees of the town for advocating for the town. And those were our Killam School Building Committee Chair, Carla Nazaro, our Superintendent, Tom Melicheski, and our Town Manager, Fidel Maltez. And last night, I had the opportunity to attend a housing forum sponsored by Senator Lewis. And the good news is there are a number of bills on the Hill being discussed to start funding affordable housing at a very high level. And anybody who's looking to see that in more details is welcome to go to the YouTube channel that Senator Lewis has set up. There's a recording there, and you'll see our housing secretary, Mr. Ed Augustus, talking about these housing bills. Some startling facts that I learned. In the state of Massachusetts, we talk about the housing crisis, and what that really means is that we have about a 1.6% vacancy in rental and ownership units available for people, and that is far too low. And to balance this market, some of the panel members in this forum estimate that we are gonna need 200,000 units added to our inventory in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So it really is properly described as a crisis, and you know, I'm looking forward to making some progress on that here in Reading and throughout the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
Thanks, Jackie. I echo Karen's sentiments about Brad Jones and his wife Linda and everybody that put on the Thanksgiving thing that we went to. It definitely is one of the better times of the year where everyone is just happy and there's no ulterior motives and everyone's getting along, and it's, you know, it's how it should be all the time, but it's good to see that many people in the same room with the same goal in mind. So it was good to hear and see. The Reading Field Hockey team won their state title over the weekend, so congratulations to them. The grade 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 boys team went to the Super Bowl, but they came up short, unfortunately. But it was a good weekend for Reading in general with that. And then in terms of the Charter Review Committee, we have the website portion is set up now. Bill set that up for me. We have the email, it's charter@reading, blah, 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 it's on the website. We've already gone over Articles 1, 2, 3, and 4. So up next is 5 and 6. If it wasn't for the holidays and town meeting, I don't want to say we'd be done by the end of the year at this rate, but that's kind of the path that we're on. So we have one more meeting in December, like 17th or 7th or something like that. So we'll see about scheduling some public input, et cetera, in the future. There's public comment at the beginning of every meeting regardless, but just getting some other feedback. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Mark?
Thanks, Jackie. Just one question, housekeeping. I noticed a lot of people have come in. I don't know if they've all signed in. Do we wanna pass up?
Sure, so yeah, if folks would like to public comment, or would like to provide public comment on anything other than the proposed traffic amendments, please sign the clipboard that Fidel will pass around. If you'd like to comment on the traffic amendments, we'll open up a separate public comment for that.
Chris, just a question. So is it if you wanna have a comment about the charter, it's charter@ci.rail.ma.us?
Yeah, it's on correct, it's the whole long distance, yes. The
There is
easiest
something
is to go on
the page.
the
It
website.
says
Right on the page.
email.
Correct, yeah. It's-
Okay.
That's why I said just go to the website, it's easy, or public comment right at the beginning.
Cool, thanks. Hi folks, so some really good news, I think. So the Reading Center for Active Living Activities are moving ahead. The screening committee interviewed candidates, and the town just hired our preferred candidate, a firm called BH&A. They'll be conducting the feasibility study. They'll be starting directly. And they were the top choice of virtually everybody in the group. They will be coming to the next Council on Aging meeting on December the 11th and to Recalc on December the 13th. And then we set up a prep team from Recalc to help them understand all the information that's already been gathered and worked on. And so we will be meeting to do that as soon as these folks are fully engaged, which hopefully will be in just another week or so. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Carlo?
Thank you. I have nothing official to report. I'm sure Fidel will mention our tree lighting that's this coming Sunday. And congratulations to the girls field hockey team. I think it's the first state championship in their tenure, as far as I know. And I know a few players on the team, so very excited for them and their families.
Thank you. Indeed. Just some updates for me. Last Wednesday, we held a public forum on the town manager search. We got some perspectives from Bernie Lynch from Community Paradigm. Bernie is our consultant to help with the search, and he told us a little bit about his process for recruiting and vetting initial candidates and how that will go with the screening committee as we get that up and running next month. We had some questions about the impact of candidates and their litigation or their involvement in litigation in prior communities, also some perspectives about experience regarding managing budgets, securing grants for other cities and towns, and staff retention. In terms of next steps in that process, just to look ahead, as we know tonight we'll be discussing and voting on the department heads to participate in the screening committee. Next Wednesday, the 29th, the select board will meet with the at-large applicants. We have designated spots for up to 2 at-large community applicants. We hope to vote on those community members at our next meeting on December 5th. And then the screening committee will meet in late December and again in early January. And just a couple of other items. Last week at the Board of Health, there was a discussion of 601 Haverhill Street, which unfortunately had a pretty serious fire and was condemned, is looking for the owners are looking to remediate by May 2024. There was also a discussion about some illegal chickens, ducks, and roosters at some addresses in town. We got an update on shared services with our peer communities regarding services like food inspection, and also the Department of Health's attempts to hire another nurse. And the Board of Health expects to receive results of the community health needs assessment and review those results next month. Also, we got some good news from Beacon Hill. We have a home rule petition before the state legislature that will increase the size of the Board of Health to allow for 2 voting members to speak without violating open meeting law. At the moment, unfortunately, because of the makeup of the Board of Health, open meeting law prevents even 2 members, member A and member B, from being able to speak to each other outside of the meeting without an open meeting law violation. And so similar to what where we are with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund home rule petition that I mentioned in the agenda, that bill, I believe, has been adopted by both houses and then, or at least preliminarily adopted, and just needs a final vote. So making some good progress there. And just some items coming up. Shop the Block for local downtown businesses is next Thursday, November 30th. So I encourage folks to come out and shop local. Also today, the Reading Rotary and Stoneham Rotary co-hosted a lunch for our football teams who will face off on Thanksgiving morning at the rivalry game. And so great event. Thank you to the Rotary for co-hosting, and we wish our Rockets the best of luck. So before I go to Fidel's town manager report, I do have some sign-ins here. And I'm assuming these folks are not here to speak on the proposed traffic amendment, so I'll just call you up in the order that you signed up.
And they are.
They are, okay. All right, is there anyone here who signed up who is here to speak on anything other than the traffic amendments? Okay, very good. So then Fidel, take it away. Thank you.
I'll be quick. One update is Birch Meadow. That project is slowly wrapping up. Very slowly, but we're almost there. The cold weather has not allowed for line painting, which is the only thing left in the parking lot. We were hoping that line painting happened this afternoon, which would allow us to open up that parking lot, but it is essentially done. There's one piece of granite that has to be installed, but the parking lot can be opened otherwise. So I am hopeful that at some point this week, whether actually at this point it's a holiday, but at some point next week, the parking lot will be done. The building passed inspection today from our building inspectors, which means that it is officially done. And all of the paving of the path of the spine, if you will, was completed earlier today. So we're almost there. With the passing of Article 9 in town meeting, That was the funding for the Grove Street parking lot. We have given the contractor the go-ahead to begin work on that parking lot. And we are going to not wait until the spring to start that work. So you'll be seeing some work happen on that parking lot, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks. At least certainly a lot of prep work for clearing the site and for construction to begin. And two major things happened today. One was that we now have a designer on board for the Killam School, that is LBA, and we now have a designer on board for the senior center feasibility studies. Those were major milestones that we have been talking about for a long time, and I'm very excited to get those to the finish line. And then finally, the tree lighting will be this Sunday at 2 p.m. In the town common. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So it's a little early, but I assume we can open up the public hearing?
Open for 7 o'clock.
For 7. Okay, so here's a legal notice. To the inhabitants of the town of Reading, please take notice that the Select Board of the Town of Reading will hold a public hearing on November 21st, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Select Board Meeting Room at Town Hall, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass., or also available remotely on Zoom to act on proposed changes to the following traffic and parking regulations. Amendment number 2023-11, improve traffic and pedestrian safety at the intersection Bancroft Ave at Hartshorn Street. Amendment number 2023-12, amend of Article 12 traffic rules and regulations, public ways, 10-minute pickup and drop-off zone. A copy of the proposed documents regarding this topic will be in the select board packet on the website at www.readingmass.gov. All interested parties are invited to attend the hearing in person or remotely via Zoom, or may submit their comments in writing or by email to townmanager@ci.reading.ma.us by order of Fidel Maltez, Town Manager.
Okay, thanks, Karen. I think we have presentation. Yep.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
So the First Amendment, 2023-11, is to add 2 stop signs to Bancroft Ave. These would be at the intersection at the end of Hartshorn, so at the T intersection there. There's already a stop sign at the end of Hartshorn, and this would add 2 more on either end of the intersection on Bancroft. There's a pedestrian crosswalk on the southern portion of that intersection, so this would just enhance the safety there. It's busy year-round with both school and then during the summer with all the fields there. And then it's a tough corner to see. The house on the end has some bushes there that are just difficult to navigate sometimes. Looking at past data over the past few years, I think we went back 10 years, and there's been 1 crash at that intersection, very minor, but that's the data we have for it.
And then, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that this was a request from a butter in particular to Mr. Sweater, who just walked into the room. So this is something that we are doing in response to a lot of requests from our butters.
Okay, great. Then should we move on to the second traffic item before we take public comment, please?
Sure.
Sure.
And then 2023-12 is to add a 10-minute pickup drop-off zone on Simon's Way on the southerly side, past the driveway, the rear driveway to Little Treasures, up to where it splits to Simon's Way, and then the parking lot for the ice arena. So this came about, I guess Little Treasures has always had this as their drop-off area. the police department has never enforced this because the no parking was for events at the arena, so that there was no blocking of emergency access into the road. So about 3 times a day, parents will drop off morning, afternoon, and the later morning pickup. It's really the best location to have it because the alternative would be out on Haverhill Street, which is one of the most dangerous streets we have in town, both in terms of number of crashes and the seriousness of crashes, and then forcing the parents to park down at the ice rink. They just have to walk down Simon's Way and actually have to cross, either walk in the road or cross the road to walk on the sidewalk, which is only on the northerly side, and then cross again where there is no sidewalk. So it makes the most sense to allow, to just amend the no parking to allow a 10-minute pickup and drop off in that area. And then again, checking our in-house data, we've had no more vehicle accidents on this road related to the pickup and drop off times. It's currently marked no parking, which would remain, and it would just add a sign underneath for the 10-minute pickup and drop off.
So Fidel is asking for additional signatures if there are any members of the public who would like to comment on these proposed traffic amendments. If you need to sign, Fidel can get that or to you. Or it's on that back counter. And then so I think we should take public comment before we get questions from the board. So I'll just call on the names in the order that they are listed. If you could please come up and give us your name and address. Try to keep your comments to 2 minutes, please. And we'll start with Ms. Sweezy. Thank you. I need the first page too.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Susie Sweezy. I'm the Learn to Skate Director of the North Shore Skating Club, and I'm also the Town of Reading Special Skates Director. I feel that the no parking signs should remain in effect the way they are, because it's very dangerous. I go to the rink at all different hours. There's people dropping their kids off. Kids are they're getting out of the cars. The doors are swinging open. Sometimes the little children are standing in the street. The parents are trying to get other kids out of the car. I have actually stopped the light, and then it changed, and then I pulled into the street, and there's cars coming out of the rink out of the on Simon's Way at the same time, stopped at that light, and you pull in, and then all of a sudden there's a car there. One time when I was pulling in to that street, one of the parents was just doing a U-turn in the middle of the road, and I had to slam on my brakes not to hit her. And I just feel that it's a safety issue, quite honestly. So and the street isn't that wide, and especially if people are stopped at that stoplight and you go to pull in, there's just not room there. So that's why I believe that no parking should remain in effect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ed Donnelly?
I'm Ed Donnelly, and I live at 18 Simon's Way, which is directly across from Little Treasures, where the problem is. I'm gonna leave these with you to pass around. This is what the road looks like in the morning. It's like the last person was saying, and there's a number of pictures here. Here you see a young girl out in the middle of the street, and you see the parent getting somebody out of a car seat. We see this every day. I have to say the police officer who spoke is absolutely wrong in some of the stuff that you said. I've lived there for almost 20 years, and that has never been a place where Little Treasures has ever parked. Little Treasures has 2 parking lots, in the front and in the back. And for every year until this past year, that's what's been used, and cars have never parked on Simon's Way, and it's worked wonderfully. No cars have ever parked on Haverhill Street in the 18 years I've lived on Simon's Way. So I just wanted to make that clear, that they've never used that as parking. What happened was, about a year ago, a parent decided to park there on the road. And then 2 or 3 days later, there were 2 parents parking there. And then 5 or 6 days later, there were 5 cars. And you can see there's as many as 12, 15 cars parking there in the mornings. That also comes to play multiple times a day. It's as you had said as well, cars trying to pull in off Haverhill Street, they're backed up. Now, here's my argument for the 10-minute. Right now, and we've asked Reading Police, we've sent the Reading Police all of these pictures, we get very little response back from them. They just said that's the best decision we can make. The bottom line is that, children are gonna get hurt. There's large vehicles that go down the road all the time. Cars get backed up onto Haverhill Street. It's just a matter of time until an adult, or most likely a child, is hit by a vehicle. And it doesn't have to be that way. As I was about to kind of go forward with those signs that say no parking, they're not being enforced right now. When I first contacted a safety officer for the town, they said, yeah, we're just gonna go give them a ticket. And then that never happened. And if he had given them a ticket, which I didn't like that idea, doing that to townspeople, but that would have stopped it. But because there was no enforcement, it just bred in a big line. Now, if these people feel like they can park there as it is, right, when there's no parking, you put a 10-minute there, they're gonna be like, well, now we can park here. Even Mary, who is in charge and owns Little Treasures, told me on the phone recently that she said, I had no idea that was going on. And, so to me, it's just a lack of communication. This is not about Little Treasures. This is not about the Reading Police Station. It's not that at all. This is about the children. This is about, or the adults that are gonna get popped by a car. And the liability that will be in front of our town when that happens is just something that can be avoided just by, if it continues, drop a ticket, the parents will get the message, and there won't be any problem for all the traffic that keeps getting backed up on that road. So thank you for hearing me, and I hope I was respectful to everybody, including you, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Newth?
Hi, I'm Shannon Knuth, and I'm the president of the North Shore Skating Club. We operate out of the Burbank Ice Arena. We have sessions there on Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And I just want to put a couple numbers and data to the number of cars that we would put in there. Starting around 3 o'clock, all those days, we've got 20 kids on the ice roughly every hour, and then probably another 10 coaches that are coming in and out. And then on Thursdays, because we run our Learn to Skate program, we have 90 people signed up right now. That varies throughout the year, of course, but every Thursday, we've got like 90 cars coming in and out. I personally come from Arlington to skate with my daughter, and yes, there's sometimes when you take that right-hand turn onto Simon's Way, there's cars there and it's just really scaring you because you don't expect them. Sometimes there's children, and I just think hopefully we can find a safety issue for a better place for these kids to park and for people to drop off their kids.
Thank you. Ms. Donnelly?
Hi, I'm Carrie Donnelly and I live at 18 Simon's Way. I'm reiterating everything that's being said about the safety, and it is really only about the safety of the kids. Little Treasures operates all year long, I think 7 to 5:30 at night. There's a full day program, there's a half day program, 8:30 to 11:30. There's a Tuesday, Thursday program, there's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday program. I believe it's licensed for over 80 children. You have 80 plus parents coming down that street, many of them parking on Simon's Way. Little kids are running in between the cars, getting out into the street. There's no sidewalk on Simon's Way on that side where all of these cars park all the way down the street. These kids, I watch it because my house is right there. I'm there. Doesn't seem like the police department wants to come down, and I've asked repeatedly with emails, phone calls. I've gone to the station to say, please someone come down and see how horrific this is, because a child is going to get hit. It's not even a question of if, it's when.
These are little toddlers. They're 2 years, 9 months to, I believe, 5. They're little people. We all drive SUVs. Reading light is down my street constantly during the day. DPW is down my street constantly during the day. They actually use the back parking lot of the rink to do their training. The fire department's down there all day long doing the training. They've been down there the last couple of days. These are enormous vehicles that are not gonna see these little kids when they run out between 2 cars. Generally, these parents have SUVs. I have tried to get this across. I don't know why we even have to be here and have this ridiculous meeting. And now you're suggesting, and you think it's okay, Mary, to have 10 minutes of, go ahead and park on the street. It's a 2-way street. It's narrow. There's not even a sidewalk. There's an enormous ditch on the side where the kids get out. I've seen kids having temper tantrums in the middle of the street. I see moms talking to their friends, and the kids are 15, 20 feet behind them, not watching them. Or they're pulling a baby out of a car seat while their kids are running across the street, and cars are coming up from the rink, are coming down Haverhill Street. I don't know what the hell everyone is waiting for to happen here, but we're gonna have a problem. And I don't want this to be lightly passed over because a private business wants to use public streets. I don't understand that. Mary has 2 parking lots on her property. She's got a big property. Reorganize it. It's not the responsibility of the rest of us to worry about these little kids getting hit by a car because other arrangements can't be made with the private business. I'd be happy to show you all the video, all the pictures that we have of what's going on. We, my husband and I, at one point this summer, because we were so being ignored by the town and the police department, we put orange cones down the street to stop it. We've tried to talk to Mary. One day DPW came down, took all the cones away, and everyone started to park again. I don't know what people are waiting for. It's a safety issue, and I'm worried about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. O'Neill?
I thought that was just attendance. I'm not making any public comment.
Okay, thank you. And then last on the sign-up sheet is Mary Grimmer.
I'm Mary Grimmer, the owner of Little Treasure Schoolhouse in 311. First, I'd like to address some of the inconsistencies here. We have absolutely always parked on Simmons Way since when we opened in 2002. I can attest to plenty of parents, if that was needed. I was told not to bring parents and get them involved, but I can have plenty of parents who can attest to parking on Simmons Way.
Mary, I live there. I'm there, you're not. I know that no one has been
You
parking there for 15.
used to work, you both used to
No,
work.
I've never worked. I've never left the house. I raised 4 children in that house. I'm
So,
always there.
You've
Ma'am,
always.
Yeah, if we could let Ms.
Yeah,
Grimmer.
we have always parked on Simmons Way, this is not new. And I only found out this had, I'd like to comment that I said I didn't know this was going on. What I didn't realize was that they were parking so close to Haverhill Street. And I didn't realize that, and I was never, I did know they were parking on Simmons Way, but not right, very close to the street light, which is in the detail, they will not be allowed to park there, that it's going to be up, past the parking lot, so not before. That is what I meant, what I didn't realize. And I didn't know, the only way I was informed about this is by talking to Fidel when we were talking about something unrelated, and he mentioned it to me. That's how I knew that the police were involved. They've never addressed this with me directly. I reached out to them several times after I talked to Fidel. So they did not let me know. I did not know they were parking that close. And I agreed that is not safe and it shouldn't be done. And that is one of the things that's in the signage, is not to park there. I had no idea, and Fidel's the one who told me. And then I called Carrie up right away. I go, what's going on? I just heard that there's a problem. And that was probably like May or June. And I did reach out to her directly on that. In terms of U-turn, that's not, I've asked, and you know that every single year, I ask my parents not to do a U-turn in their driveway, don't park in their driveway. If they're going around anyway, even coming out of the parking lot, to go around to Burbank and turn around. So I agree, they shouldn't be doing U-turns on the thing, and I tell them every year, and I have tried to work on that, to make sure that that's not something they do, so it's not normal. In terms of parking, many preschools are in residential areas and many of them do use private streets. Even CCP across the street parks right here on Salem Street to get their children out. So it is common. My child went to Humpty Dumpty on Lowell Street. I used to get him out. We'd park along the side. So it's not unheard of to have use private public ways to park for a business. That's not unheard of. In charge of safety, you know, you can be in Market Basket or McDonald's or Walmart and see kids getting out of a car and pulling in a driveway and being thing. I've seen it in parking lots. I worry about my parking lots that a parent is gonna back up and someone's gonna be walking. I worry about all the safety things. I worry about kids getting away. I said to a parent today, can I help you out the door? Because she had a toddler running and bags and everything, and I helped her out the door. So, yeah, parents can be busy and things can happen, but accidents can happen in parking lots just as much if someone's backing up or someone's pulling in too fast or around the corner. The alternative is parking on Haverhill Street, crossing over across the way. That's not safe either. We have accidents on Haverhill Street. People get, have been hit on that. The other thing is parking, I can't say you can park at Burbank because it's not my property, but they're gonna be walking on sidewalks that's not plowed or streets that aren't plowed or, we usually help. My husband helps Ed at the Burbank, and our neighbor, and he helps plow Simmons Way in the winter. With the three of them work together between Ed and then the town plows as well. So we spent the last 21 years doing that. So we have been doing it, and I can get parents to testify or comment on it. I just didn't bring parents here because I was told you didn't want to hear from a lot of parents. That wasn't the right thing to do, but they certainly can and say to that. It always has been the way we've been doing it. And it's not usually the full parents, it is the half-day session. They drop off at 8:30 to 11:30, or you can do 8:30 to 2:30. Sometimes full-day parents do park there, but it's usually, and that's usually school, it's better in the summer, it's better on school vacations because they follow the Reading Public School systems a half-day. And so the problem is they all drop off at once, where the full day, they stagger anywhere from 7 to 9 a.m., and those parents will use the front and back parking lot. So that is the difference between the half-day and the full day, and yeah, they do park on Simmons Way. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, is there anyone who would like to comment on these traffic items who hasn't signed in the room? And then Caitlin, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to comment on these traffic amendments?
No, no one online.
Okay. So do we close the public hearing and then have board
If I
discussion?
could just follow up on.
Yes, go ahead, sure.
So the safety officer actually did go down to Little Treasures, I believe it was back in the spring, to do an on-site to see if there were any other alternatives to get the parents in and out. But there's, the back lot is almost like a dirt parking lot area. The front lot, it has their, the small school bus. So there was no place to have any kind of drop-off in the parking lot that would be any safer. Like Mary said, backing up is really not feasible in there because the staff is parked in there. So there's no place really except for double parking in the parking lot. And Officer Scouten did include in the amendment to have it past the driveway, so far enough away from Haverhill Street that there's plenty of line of sight that if anybody is walking in the street to get into the rear driveway, there's plenty of line of sight to see any pedestrians in the road. One of the two recommended parking lots by the neighbor were St. Athanasius, which we can't do because it's a private lot, and the hockey rink, which I'd said earlier is a further way to walk, and they're still crossing the street at Simon's Way regardless.
Excuse me, that doesn't make sense. They have to cross the street when they're parking along the side that you want them to park on. When they're parking at the rink, they can see everything around them and they only have to take a one lane, crossing one lane, and they're on the sidewalk the whole way.
If they park at the ice rink, they'd have to cross
Where?
Simon's Way to go onto the.
Where would they cross? By the baseball field? No, it's a one-way street right there going down to the rink, right? Boom, boom. No, two-way, it's two-way, but it's so much safer to
The
cross
sidewalk
there.
is on the opposite side of the road.
Right.
So they'd have to cross from the parking lot to get to the sidewalk and then cross again from the sidewalk to get into the rear
So
parking
you
lot.
think it's safer for the kids to be
So
walking in the middle of the street?
They'd be
yeah.
walking in the middle of the street.
They'd be walking in the middle of the street.
regardless.
There's
So you're
pictures
just
that show
making them
this.
walk further.
No,
No.
there's a sidewalk on our side of the street, but they don't
it's-
park on
Right, so
that
they would
side.
have to cross from that side if they were walking from the ice rink. So they
That's a
would
lot
be in
better
the
than
street
being hit
either
by
way.
a car that doesn't see them because they're jumping out of the car on the road.
That's why it's pushed back behind where the
But cars
driveway
don't,
is.
drive quickly by there, then I guess, that's safe. But you've seen the pictures. You used the phrase, the hub of recreation. You want to develop Simon's Way with all types of development down there. That's more traffic than we've already talked about today. In the meantime, you're letting a place that said you can't park, you never enforce that, then we wouldn't be sitting here if you guys did. And now you're saying, here's 10 minutes. If you look at those pictures, do you see one adult near a car in those pictures that go down the whole street? You don't, because they go in there, and Mary's actually told me, they want to talk to the teachers. It's your only school where you allow the kids, the parents, to come in and talk to the
No, I
teachers.
don't.
You told me that on the phone. They want to see the parents. They want to see the parents teaching their kids. The parents stay in there, and they're basically getting an open door now when you say 10 minutes. 10 minutes means parking. And you're just not seeing that, and you're not gonna see it until you're really saddened by something terrible that's gonna happen. Or could happen.
You turn the street into a one-way street and it backs up everybody else as well.
But-
There's the safety issue.
That's the
And that
safety
doesn't
issue.
seem to
So
be-
if there's additional
That's
public comment, I'd like you to come up to the podium, but otherwise, Lieutenant, are there,
That's all I
is there, okay, thank you.
I have more to say then, because we weren't even notified about this meeting, we knew nothing about it, and I get the impression that Little Treasures did know about this being on the agenda item, we found this out at the very last minute. So my question is, has anyone done a study on this, a traffic report? Or are we just gonna wing it and just throw up signs on a two-way street? What's gonna happen here?
So, okay, thank you for your questions, and during our discussion, we can have that out and hear a little bit more about it from Lieutenant Jones and from Fidel. So with that, can we close the public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, raise your hand, please. Opposed, we're 5-0, the public hearing is closed. And so I guess we'll have discussion, perhaps because we have two amendments, it sounds like one of them regarding Hartshorn and Bancroft is, I guess we can maybe, we can address that first. Are there any board member questions or comments about that one? Again, this is just on Bancroft and Hartshorn. Yes, Karen?
Thank you. Yes, Officer Scouten is Lieutenant Jones, sorry. Are we turning that into a four-way stop? I pulled up the GIS and I see where it is down by the tennis courts, where I know we've had parking and traffic issues down there.
Yeah, so it's a stop in all three directions. So there's already a stop at the end of Hartshorn, so this is just adding stops on either side of Bancroft.
Okay, so yeah, it's not a four-way stop, but this turns it effect, so you always have to stop when you go to that intersection, that's the purpose of this?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I run and walk in that area, I think it's a great idea, for what it's worth, so.
There are two motions before you. If you want.
Yeah, so I'd like to vote on the Bancroft and Hartshorn, because I think we have some discussion ahead of sign
So that would be 2023-11 dash
Yes.
11? Okay. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Okay, move to approve amendment number 2023-11 to the traffic and parking regulations as presented.
Thanks, Karen. Is there a second? Second. Thanks, Mark. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, 5-0 on the Bancroft and Hartshorn. And so moving on to a discussion about Simon's Way. I have a couple of questions for Lieutenant Jones and Fidel, but before I do, any other questions or comments from board members on Simon's Way?
You want Fidel first? Us first?
No, I'm going to you first and then, yeah, go ahead, Carl.
I just have a procedural question, I should know the answer to this. When we do a public hearing, do we mail to abutters on, I should know the answer, but I forget.
We do for some when it's legally required. It is legally required that it goes on the newspaper. So there is notice that it goes on the newspaper. And I think for these, it's advertised for 2 weeks. So it was on the Chronicle. It was posted on the Chronicle.
So procedurally, we don't notify abutters for stop signs or changing speeds, stuff?
Not for that, no.
Okay.
When it's a zoning issue, then we're legally required to, draw a circle and it's 100 feet and all that stuff. For traffic amendments, we do not. It is not legally required. But a legal posting is required, and that did happen in this case.
Okay. That's all I found out. Get that answer.
Mark?
So a couple of questions. With the parking as being suggested right now, if we had people exit on not the street side. So in other words, say to them, you can't open the door into the street other than the driver, I guess. Is there a place for people to pass that way, or do you have to go in the street?
So if someone's taking the child out of the car.
Right.
Passenger side?
So this is passenger side, right? If they open
From
the
the
door on the
passenger
passenger
side,
side and get out,
I-
what's there?
I believe there's curbing, and then it goes into almost like marshland.
4-foot ditch.
Yeah.
That runs the length of the road right off the curb.
Okay, so you have to get out on the street side, basically. So, couple things then. One, has there ever been any assistance in that location for people, like whether it's sponsored by Little Treasures or by the police, just to kind of help during these drop-off times? To help with safety and other things? Has that ever been considered?
Can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Sorry, so I'll be very loud. I'm wondering if there's ever been any assistance offered to the people parking there, either by the police or by the treasurers, to make sure that it's a safe transition that's taking place during the drop-off and pickup
You
times.
mean like somebody out there helping getting the kids out of the car?
Not taking them out of the car, but making sure that it's an orderly process coming out of the car.
No, we haven't, we talked about that, but like I said, I only found out about this last spring. And then since this fall, we haven't been parking, they put the cones up, so we haven't been parking there. So we have talked about different options, and we did look at, when I bought the place, that was all conservation allowed for parking. I did try to get more parking out of it, but now after I bought it, that was all that conservation allowed for parking. So that's what I know Carrie mentioned, reconfiguration of the driveway, but conservation had stopped that. But that what you're saying is one of the things we were looking into, we just haven't been parking there since they put the cones there. So
Got it. So, I
it
guess,
is something we could do and look into.
yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
So I think that's one of the things that they looked at on the onsite is if they did kind of like a one vehicle at a time drop off, then the vehicles would be further out would be backing up into towards Haverhill Street.
Sorry, that's not what I'm suggesting.
Oh,
What I'm
okay.
suggesting is that if you've got people parking at between 150 and 400 feet down the road,
Mhm.
and the question of safety is as they're getting out of the vehicles while being parked there, can there be some assistance in just making sure it's an orderly transition, a safety officer? We have police crossing guards that are at Killam and all the other schools. Is this something that could I'm not suggesting necessarily it's a police crossing guard, but some form of assistant to help with the process. Would that make a difference?
I don't know if that's something that the police wouldn't be able to provide every day just based on calls for service.
Yeah, so maybe it has to be done privately.
Right.
And it's, is that what you were talking about, Mary?
Yes, we've
Okay.
actually had more of a presence out there, my directors out there has been, just watching and monitoring and being
Yeah.
involved.
So I did kind of pursue this question with Lieutenant Jones early on when we first saw this thing coming up in terms of what are the options, and the feedback was, just as you laid out, there are no other options other than parking on Haverhill Street. That seemed reasonable, but it also seems like there's a problem just kind of having this a little helter-skelter. You know, it strikes me that there need to be some special arrangements, and probably testing this idea of assistance is a really good one to get it going. And I think for me to be supportive of this, I think something like that would need to be in place.
Chris?
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, in terms of Haverhill Street, people go 80 down Haverhill Street. No one's parking on Haverhill Street ever for anything. Right? Doesn't matter where it is. So for me, that would be off the table. Not that it's even on there to begin with. So the front of your building has, it looks like, I don't know, like 10 parking spots or something. What is being used? Why is nobody parking in there?
Oh, they do park there. They park in the front, and a lot of my staff, my neighbor actually gives us parking too, so my staff park in my neighbor's yard now, and some of them do park, you know, on Haverhill Street or at the church. So the parents do park in the parking lots. It's just right at, it's the drop off, and one of the things I'm gonna do next year too is do more staggered class times. So right now, the majority of them were, we have an 8:30 start time and an 8:45 start time. We've actually made it earlier too. We started them dropping off from 8:15 to 8:20 just to stagger the congestion right at 8:30. Because 8:30 is the most popular time. And so the half-day program, it used to be 8:30 and 8:45, but then with COVID, we kind of did it earlier. So one of the things I'm looking at is changing the stop signs to spread it out so it's not all most of the time. So the biggest problem is like at 8, I think it's 8:30 is the most congested. But they do park in the front and they do park in the back and they do double park, they do park. There's some staff that are a little bit more, they don't necessarily have handicap plates, but they could if they needed it. So they're the ones who park in the back parking lot, but parents do block them in as well to come in. So they do park out front as well.
So it does seem as if some scheduling could be adjusted to kind of alleviate the issues that are over there.
It won't solve the
It won't,
problem, but
yeah.
we're
Never.
I have done a lot to try to help since this was brought to my attention.
And I think just procedurally, and in my opinion, going forward, Fidel, if we're notifying abutters about the library getting landscaping done, we should be notifying people that they're gonna be changing stuff right around the corner from them. You don't have to go 100 feet or whatever, just something reasonable to notify people. I'm not gonna look in the newspaper if something's getting done on my street. I would expect the town to tell me if it's something within reason, you know. That's just me personally, how I would feel on this. I think for me, usually these traffic things are a no-brainer, call it a day, you know, kind of thing. I'd like to see this myself before I'd be making a decision, because it sounds as if it's chaos over there. So that's kind of where I'm at on this. As I was looking at it, I did think the fair compromise would be to start it at the driveway and go back, because I'm wondering why you would do it in the beginning, but you already kind of discussed that. But it seems if it's gonna be the same issue, because it is super tight over there. And I think it's only gonna get worse with all Simon's Way stuff getting developed. I'm not sure how we're doing that, and then we block her from doing her parking lot. To me, that doesn't make sense either. She should have been able to do that if we're gonna knock down all this stuff and do whatever we want. But that's not up to me. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't think that the right thing to do would be to be voting on this now with so many unknowns.
Yes.
Thanks. Can I ask Mary a question, just a clarifying question? You mentioned conservation. Were you talking about taking down trees?
When I
or
opened
yeah.
in 2002, there were different designs that we proposed, like a turnaround, which that didn't work, they didn't want that, or to go back a little bit more into the area to make a bigger parking lot, and I was denied after I bought the building.
Because it was wet, or do you remember the reasons why they?
No, just because it abuts wetlands type of thing, and
There's usually like buffer zones that
right,
you have
buffer
to, you have
zones
to
didn't.
adhere to.
And my property goes all the way back down the whole Simmons Way that abuts where you guys were proposing your original pickleball thing with the parking lots. right up against my property as well, that I was always told I couldn't put parking.
I mean, I'm just looking at the overhead, and there's a lot of trees on her property at that lot. And I don't know how many spots you can gain. It's not nice taking down trees, but it may be nice to revisit conservation, and because I don't think Chuck was here 20 years ago, and maybe we could help a little bit. You could gain 2 or 3, 4 spots. That's better than nothing, but yeah, it's very narrow street, obviously, and any projects that are gonna happen down there are quite a ways away, but still, I mean, we talked about, you know, fire trucks and ambulances and other things, and obviously we got, you know, hockey, which is the winter and at nights, not really impacting the school, but it's pretty narrow. And I guess I'm worried that if we don't do anything and the no parking doesn't get enforced, we're still having the same problem. I think, I mean, that's what I see it. If the parents are parking there now and it says no parking, even if it's for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and we don't pass this amendment, they're still gonna park there if you don't enforce it. So I guess, where does that leave us? It's gonna be status quo, and then, God forbid, something happens. So I don't have an answer, but I think some enforcement, I don't know, yeah, I agree with Mr. Donnelly, you don't wanna ticket parents for dropping and picking up their kids. But it's, you know, and I'm hoping I'm not parking near Havel Street, cause that's very dangerous. As a parent, shouldn't do that, but I would try to work with conservation and try to get that lot a little bit bigger. And if they hear it's about safety, maybe they'll let her do something.
That's years down the line though too, even if it did, I'd be more than happy, I've always wanted more parking.
No, it's not an immediate fix, but it's, you know,
I agree, I'd be more than happy to add more parking on my property if it was allowed.
right.
Karen?
Thank you. When I saw this on the agenda, I was concerned. I am familiar, I am a user of the Ice Arena. Luckily, I don't seem to mostly bump into any of the congested times, which is great. I've seen them park there, drive by, and the road's not wide enough to have cars parking there. So I would concur with my colleagues, and I can't see Mary, I hate to send you back to conservation, but since you've been, I'm sorry, right there.
I moved because I couldn't hear you.
Since you've been there 20 years and the business has changed and we desperately need childcare in this community, at this point, it's a safety issue. You might get some support from the officers and fire and ask for a hardship kind of a decision. I'm looking at your acre lot, and it is mostly covered in wetlands. I'm looking at ArcGIS online, and those have all stayed that way, and they might be amenable to. I know the parents that are looking to drop off quickly, I'm wondering about that corner, if they could. I remember trying to get into that back driveway, and I was like, this is horrible. The back parking lot is one way in, and one car in and one car out. It's not, and I also remembered the ditch. I might have tried to park on Simon's Way once, and I was like, this is not good. So this is not gonna be a safe situation, but so I'm not sure that I would like to vote for this tonight, but I understand, and I'd like to do what we can to help make this a safer environment. Haverhill is only 30 miles an hour now, but nobody wants to run across the street with a little toddler, just move very fast.
Right.
Okay, that's it, thank you.
Was this discussed at the PTTF, and if so, were either Ms. Grimmer or neighbors involved in that discussion?
I think it was just within the police department.
And then how often does PTTF meet?
That's once a month, but that's town staff only.
Okay, so it's not a public meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Chuck, Tyrone is online and he's got a comment about.
Okay, yeah, we'll get to him in a moment. I agree with my fellow board members that we, I think, don't have enough information to vote on this motion as it currently is provided. I agree that, you know, ideally, abutters should be notified. I also know from my own personal experience that even with respect to major projects, our town does not have a perfect record with respect to notifying abutters. And so that's always an area for improvement. But I do think we need, you know, some more information both from traffic officers and from the daycare, and some more input from abutters before we can vote on this and decide. It sounds like even currently there's a lot of, there's some, you know, dangerous times of the day in that area, and it's likely to become more so as we plan for potentially additional uses there at Simon's Way. So with that, you know, not to put you on the spot, Chuck, but if Chuck is available, Chuck, are you able at all, and it's okay if the answer is no, we can take it as an action item, but are you able to speak at all to some of the property that I guess is on this, kind of this, that's southeast of Little Treasures?
Yeah, sure. Hi, and thank you for the opportunity. It's Chuck Tironi, the Conservation Administrator. And I was just listening to this and only heard that it's beyond the driveway, so it's closer to the skating rink than Haverhill Street. And so I think that you know, that is an area that would be reviewed by the Conservation Commission, or so I think that how the select board is kind of pausing to, you know, collect some more facts. I think that I would only ask that the conservation be part of that, and also be able to report to the select board or find out if a conservation permit is needed for this this parking area. Again, you know, cars and parking, just like on Grove Street, introduce sediment, oil, gasoline, brake dust, all that into the wetland. And anything within the 100-foot of a wet area or a jurisdictional wetland would be within the conservation's jurisdiction. So not everything needs a permit, but right now I don't know anything about this new parking spot that seems to be on the verge of being official. So if there's any direct questions about this area, I could answer them, but I think I've already let you know that there is a wetland right there. This parking lot, the edge of the parking lot is right up against the edge of the wetland. And it probably wasn't approved that way, but what ends up happening, since it's a gravel parking lot, is the plows, you know, push it that way, and you know, it is what it is. I saw that when I first got here in 2011, and I don't think it's moved very far since, but you know, something in gravel wouldn't end up moving towards the wetland, I suspect, and that's what happened there.
Question. Probably for Chuck, but maybe for Lieutenant Jones also. What would be required to get a second access or egress from the back parking lot that's not toward the conservation side, but more toward Haverhill Street? Is that a conservation issue?
Yeah, I wouldn't know that.
Well,
So-
within 100 feet, it would be a conservation discussion, possibly a permit, but if you're moving away from the existing disturbed area, which would be the entrance and the parking area and the gravel, it seems like that would be a reasonable location.
Mark, what are you talking about? Can you show me?
So, yeah.
I got it on my
I was
board.
running them out.
So right
So this
now,
would be
I think the
closer
access
to-
is
Yeah.
back here.
Yeah.
What if you opened up a second access or egress
Oh, in
here?
and out,
Yeah,
in and out, yeah, yeah.
so closer to Haverhill Street? So is your access point back here right now? What if you had one closer to Haverhill?
Two of them.
They denied that, but.
They denied that.
Yeah, so that's what but that's why I'm
It was a long
asking
time
Chuck, if
ago,
it's
wasn't it?
closer, if it's away from conservation land, is it out of the conservation jurisdiction and it's more just a
can I
request?
point to that and to make sure I understand what you're saying? You're saying you wanna do like an in and an out that way?
Mhm.
I'd love to have that happen, but I was told no, because people would come around and that would be too close to this and it was a safety.
So don't go that far. Go, so you could, in fact, you could,
Yeah, in that way,
The further away.
Of the deep one.
I originally opposed an in and out originally back in 2002, after we bought the property, but if that's a change and that's a doable thing.
So just a question, from the town's point of view, what's required? Is that just a permit? And that's a zoning variance?
We'd have to
Good
look
answer.
So, okay, so I think the
We have to-
zoning,
Yeah,
zoning is where we gotta take a look for that. But that might help a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
Chuck, any comment on that, Mark's proposal?
Well, I understand where Mark is trying to place the additional entrance, and that seems reasonable. I don't believe it would be more than 100 feet away, but possibly it could be. I don't have the tools to take a measurement from my iPad, but anything in that direction is a good start, a doable situation. So I think that would be something that the Conservation Commission could entertain.
maybe that's a good next step to explore anyway.
Mic drop.
I think that people are trying to make this better, as you had talked about John Foley, he lives here, and he's such a nice guy, he has 4 parking spaces here, and he's letting Mary put her staff there. So I mean, Mary, you are trying, I get that, and this has always been, I've said it to you at the beginning, it's about the kids. And I don't wanna sound like a school teacher when I say that, but it really is about the kids' safety.
I understand your point of view, I don't agree, I still think that's the safest way, and it has been what we're doing, but, you don't know, you can't look at the future, will someone slip and fall on their way walking from Burbank, or a car come around and hit them, you don't know what the future could bring,
You
so,
don't, Mary,
but I respect your
We look out our windows and
decision.
we see it though, it's right in front of our windows.
I know you watch, yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like we've got some action items with zoning to check on the whether it's possible to have an ingress on the side closer to Haverhill Street and the egress on the side closer to Burbank. It sounds like we also at least need potentially some input from Chuck on where the border of that conservation land is with respect to that lot. I also, think we need just more input on kind of the broader impact of enforcement and and the impact of this proposed change. I also agree, I'm not ready to vote for this amendment tonight as it stands. I think we need more work on this across a few different fronts. And some better neighborhood engagement that, obviously will take some time here. Chuck, did you have something to say?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm ready to to see the proposal and direct the commission also. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so do you want to read the motion? Or no?
Do you wanna confirm a sense of the board to not vote on it?
Yeah, I'm thinking we don't wanna vote on it, so do we need to do anything? We closed the hearing.
Yeah, the hearing's closed, so yeah, okay. I mean, does anyone have an issue with not voting on this tonight?
No.
Okay. All right, so Lieutenant, thank you, and thank you,
Thank you,
members.
Lieutenant.
And before you go, Lieutenant, just one other item. I had heard from a member of the public, and I passed this along to Fidel, but just wanna pass it along again here. A resident on Lincoln Street, which is the street parallel on the south side of the commuter rail line, it's actually parallel to the line,
Yep.
Has asked for some traffic calming and
That's on,
safety
that's
measures.
on response, PTT.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure. So, thank you.
Right,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks folks for
Yeah,
coming in.
thank you so much.
Thank
For
you.
tonight,
Yeah.
we're finished with that.
Okay, so next item is an update from Jenna Fiorenti, Community Services Director, on ARPA and Elder Affairs. So Jenna? Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry. So sorry, thank you. Alright, well, thanks for having me tonight to give this update. I'm excited to give this update. Here tonight too, we have a couple members of the COA. We have Nancy Zemlak and Marilyn Shapley. Nancy's actually the COA chair and Marilyn is the former chair. And both have been active part in the senior community for quite some time. And more importantly, we have Chris, who is in charge of Elder and Human Services over at the center. No offense, ladies. So all of them have been instrumental in helping us navigate the funds over the past year. And we think that we do have a good plan moving forward to spend the remaining funds. Obviously, we know that you all are in charge of overseeing the funds. So certainly this is just an informational thing that we came up with as a team. So Chris and I met with his team. Chris has met individually with his team. We've met with members of the COA. This was presented at the COA as well at the beginning of the month. So we're excited to share with you. So next slide, please. So again, the team, Chris is in the building. Just quickly, it's astonishing how much they have accomplished this year with the funding. The main priority was really focusing on programming this year and figuring out what works, what doesn't work, what people want to participate in, what's going to be popular. And it kind of turns out that everything's pretty popular that we're running for the most part. So that's really exciting. But Chris started in August of last year and then was quickly promoted to his role. Anna, who is now our senior center coordinator, was the clerk when she started off and was promoted to her role last December. But then she had to remain the senior coordinator until March, until a new clerk could come on. So she was doing two roles. And now we have our clerk who started in March, our administrative assistant, Linda Antonoro. So there's been a lot of moving parts, a lot of times that we haven't been fully staffed. So really since March, we've been fully staffed. So the amount, again, of work and time and effort that has gone into spending these funds and what has been accomplished is phenomenal. Chris sent us numbers last week. We have over 28,000 interactions at the center. We have over 14,000 people in our 60-plus population who have been coming to these programs and participating in these events. So just kudos to the whole team over there. Carrie, our caseworker, our nurse advocate, who work tirelessly with making sure that all of our residents get the health and social services they need. Joe Beninati, our transportation coordinator, has been there for several years. So just not enough that I could say about the staff. Just a tremendous job to Chris and his whole team. So next slide, please. So for the ARPA, the original funding ask was 900,000. That's what we received in funding. The feasibility study, we kind of took out of that pool and said, hey, it's going to be 300,000. And then programs were 600,000. And in that programming, there was subsets. So there was bus trips, there was wellness programs, improving accessibility, virtual and hybrid programs, supplemental program space and staff support, and we consider those all like subsets of the programming. And then at the end, I did put that funds must be encumbered by the end of 2024 and used by the end of December 2026. Encumbered does mean that it needs to be secured into a PO, and we do have a plan, so I'll get into that. So the feasibility study, the funds for the feasibility study will be used and encumbered under the appropriate time frame. The feasibility study remains crucial to future planning of the new center and community center. We did do this at the end of October. We didn't know what the exact amount for the most current feasibility study would be. That number obviously could change. I don't think it would be astronomical, maybe like up to 250, I would say, but since that original allocation was 300,000, we just took a guess that that's the amount that would be spent for the remaining of the feasibility study, given that we already spent 55,415 to explore Walgreens and some options over there originally, which I think it didn't work out, but I don't regret that decision at all. And I think it was money well spent and a lesson learned, and we did get a lot of data from that interaction. So we can move on to the next slide. Programming. So just a little bit about what we've done. Implemented multiple free lunch programs, including bringing back congregate lunches on Mondays. We do our Monday lunches right after bingo, so a lot of folks stay after bingo, and then we do get more people coming in to those congregate lunches. Held monthly lunch and learns at the Pleasant Street Center and offered multiple wellness sessions at the Reading Public Library. Wellness Wednesdays are so popular, Chris actually helps run all of the Wellness Wednesdays program, so he gets all of the speakers come in. Chris actually does a lot of the sessions himself because he did a lot of wellness programming in Somerville when he was there for 10 years. So he has a wealth of knowledge and has brought a lot of great speakers into the library. And at Wellness Wednesdays, we've seen anywhere from 50 to 70 people when we're running a series. And I think we've done 3 series so far?
3.5.
3.5.
Summer's a half.
Yeah, summer was a little edited, right? So super popular, offered several existing programs at little to no cost, and we implemented new programs. So there are still some programs that we charge a very minimal fee, but for the most part, we wanted folks to come in we just wanted folks to come in. We didn't want, right?
Yes.
We didn't want them to pay money. You know, they're our most vulnerable population. We wanted them to come in, we wanted them to get out. We didn't want them to worry. So a majority of our programs over at the center were at no cost thanks to the ARPA funds. Ran over 20 large coach bus trips and mini bus trips, and the plan is to also add a couple overnight trips. We got some feedback about that, so that's something Chris really wanted to add, which is great. And our large coach bus trips are pretty much full every single one that we run. So again, trial and error. What's working? Well, everyone wants to go on the bus trips, and everyone wants to go to the Wellness Wednesdays and the Lunch and Learns, and so it's been awesome. So the total amount of programming that we've used, that was the exact number as of October 31st, and I didn't change the numbers because I just wanted it to be consistent with what I presented to the COA. And then we projected the expenses in programming to be $250,000. The total projected estimate for programming would be that exact total that you see, and then what we would use it for would be the what you see below and what I've just kind of explained. So next slide. And these are just some pictures of the programs. On the top left-hand corner, that's our Wellness Wednesdays program. Right next to it is Ted Reinstein. We did actually a nighttime event. We're like, oh, we don't know who's gonna come out at nighttime. Well, packed house for Ted Reinstein from the Chronicle, who came on a random Thursday night. On the right corner up here, we have the lobster bake that we had at one of our trips. Lower left-hand corner, we have Ben Cares, also in the building, who came to our Lunch and Learn. And what was really cool about our Lunch and Learns too is that all of the staff wanted to come to the Lunch and Learns. They saw how many seniors were coming and saw it as a great way to tap into that 60+ population. So Fidel came and gave an awesome talk about the trash barrels. No, it passed, so it worked. And Ben came and talked about the parking kiosks, and it's just really helpful to see them engage with like the staff and actually be tapped into what's going on in the community, and I think they really appreciated it and enjoyed it. The bottom middle picture is an event that we ran at Hillview. So Anna coordinated a big musical bingo event over there. So we got over 100 seniors. Karen came.
That's fun.
So we were all dancing, having a good time, and had a nice meal there. So folks really enjoyed that. And then on the bottom right-hand corner, we had an intergenerational program, which the intergenerational programs that we've been running have been phenomenal. Rec and Elder and Human Services have done combined events, and we've seen probably upwards to like 40 people. And then Chris has also implemented a program with the high schoolers called Bridging Generations, and they've also seen about the same amount in enrollment for their programs, and they've done game nights, and just so many awesome intergenerational programs with the high schoolers and the seniors as well. Programming staff support, we already have encumbered $100,000 for staff support last year in the budget. This was mentioned a little bit. So we are currently funding our part-time senior coordinator from ARPA funds, our part-time recreation coordinator through ARPA funds, and our part-time volunteer coordinator, who's about to be hired. She starts December 4th through the ARPA funds. And I just wanted to put in this blurb, and when we were talking with the COA too, they brought this up and they're like, well, why is the rec coordinator being funded through ARPA, through the seniors? And I said, well, rec serves a lot of the older population as well, with a variety of our programs. And you'll see here that we have 247 seniors that have been registered since the beginning of the year in our programs for rec. And rec has helped market and plan and facilitate several of the intergenerational programs that have been going on. And they also offer nighttime and weekend programming when the Pleasant Street Center isn't open. So it is a valuable part of programming, and the program coordinator also is going to be working more with Chris and implementing more nighttime programming when the center is not open. So we're just asking for an additional, well, we're hoping that we can just add a little bit more to our staff support to get us a little bit more time with these positions. And the total amount would be $125,000. Program accessibility and inclusivity. This is something that we have been talking about but haven't dedicated the time to really hone in on. Over the past couple months though, we have been working on getting quotes and things like that for all of the things that you see up here. Specifically, and even in the past month, Kevin Farilla and his staff in IT have been instrumental in getting us quotes and meeting with different audio specialists about things that we can do at the center. One of the things was the hearing loop system, which is around $17,000. But what we found out is, hey, we might have to tear up the whole entire senior center floor to put the hearing loop system in. So what are some other creative things that we can do? We have some things that we are going to be exploring for folks who need some audio assistance, and then obviously acoustical improvements. We've received a quote for adding acoustic panels into this center too, for folks again who are having a hard time hearing. So accessibility is really important to us in the existing building. Hopefully we're not there for too much longer, or there could be really big renovation coming down the line for us, but here in the now, within the next 2 or 3 years, just having these accessibility improvements would go a long way. Supplemental programming space. We released an RFI for supplemental space in Reading, and the only response was Walgreens. We held Wellness Wednesdays at the library. They don't charge us a fee. We held our one large offsite event, which was the new bingo event that I mentioned, and we possibly would like to use some of these funds for rental space if needed during a new reno possibly, or a new build. So we're asking for $90,000 to continue with our offsite programs and possibly a future rental of the building. Next slide. So this is just a little funding summary. It's a little small. Hopefully you guys got this presentation before, so you saw it. It just gives you the rundown and the breakdown of everything that I kind of went over in the presentation, and I'm more than willing to answer any questions. And I just wanted to highlight how we're gonna do it, right? So the meals and the trips are very, very popular. So we want to follow the best practices now for procurement. So we are going to be sending out RFQs in December for our meals and for our trips. So what we can do is we can encumber those funds with those quotes. So we could, throw it out to Royal Tours, Distinction, and Fox Tours. And someone will come back and we could say, hey, 1 year option to renew, and we can procure those funds for the trips and the programs. So that for us, we don't see being a problem encumbering them by the end of next year and spending them by the end of December 2026. Similarly speaking, on the programming side, Anna and Chris and the team over there are so great at planning ahead now. So we have things that we're running, next June that are already planned. So we procure them with POs and we hold that money. So any programming, any person that we pay, that's not a big vendor, we could still procure that money and hold it, so that it won't go away. And same thing for bigger improvements with the video, the audio and visual, improvements or any type of new signage. Those are all things, intangible things that we can get POs for to hold the money, to make sure that we have it and it doesn't go away and our 60+ population doesn't lose out. So that's kind of the idea there. Any questions?
Thanks. Go ahead.
I have a question, not for Jenna per se, but thank you. Mark mentioned we hired somebody for what was that cost?
$250,000 not to exceed. Spot on, 250.
What does that mean?
$250,000 is for the fees, all the way through schematic drawings in 3 phases. The total cost with BH&A is $250,000. So what was in here was 244.
Yeah, so that's not far off.
Yeah. And we spent that much because we had it, or that's what it really cost?
We haven't spent anything at all.
Right, no, not spent, but allocated, right?
We are under contract with them for $250,000.
Just for the feasibility study, nothing, if we pick a site, we get them on the hook for other stuff, right? It's just,
We do get them hooked up for the other stuff. So there are 3 phases.
that's what I mean, that's what I'm asking,
Yeah, that covers all 3 phases. So phase 1 is really kind of the prep.
Yeah.
Phase 2 is feasibility, am I calling that right?
Yeah.
And phase 3 is schematic drawings of the preferred location.
Okay. and-
So what we did is we bid for the whole thing.
Okay,
Soup
all
to-
right, that's all I wanted to ask, thank you. Yeah, because I didn't like that if we were spending
Right, so,
$250, because we had $250 left just for a feasibility study.
but we knew that we couldn't exceed that.
Right, no, I
And the
get it.
location went out as a not to exceed.
I get it. No, now I have a better understanding of it, so.
And it was also set so that we get the information on site locations, the whole feasibility piece.
I get it, yeah.
The community has a lot of input into what's going on.
And then final
Assuming we
step
select.
is,
Yep, that's it. That's it exactly.
okay. Unrelated, but related.
Yes.
There's Karen.
Thank you very much. Great plan. I did want to ask, could we hear from the Council on Aging? Are we happy? Is the Council on Aging happy with this plan? Are they have any additional input?
Are we happy?
We have you to come up, Nancy, to the
Oh.
center stage.
We've worked really closely with the Elder and Human Services and Recalc during this whole process. And it's been a huge effort, and it's wonderful seeing us move forward to the feasibility study. And it's also wonderful, I also volunteer at the Pleasant Street Center. So I'm in the building, not every day, but I'm there enough so that the place is busy. I meet a lot of the people there, and no one has, everybody is, that I've spoken with, is very pleased with the programming that's in place. It's really nice because it offers a place where the over 60 community can get together and socialize. And socializing is very critical as you get older, especially as your life changes, your lifestyle changes, your family dynamics change. So to have a place where you can have that social interaction in a very positive way, whether it's exercise or whether it's the health programs or the bus trips. It was great to see the bus trips. We actually, when I was there, I saw a lot of the younger 60s there. And actually, I went on my first little field trip on the Elder and Human Services bus. And I have to say, I was a little like, I don't know if I want to be saying this. But it was fine, and we had fun. And the people on the bus most likely would not have driven we went to Encore and saw the building, made a little money.
It was.
Yeah. But it was a very nice trip, and the people that were on the bus would not have driven there, most likely, and they everybody's talking and chatting and people know each other, and so in a word, yes, we are happy. We are very happy with Jenna and Chris and the whole staff at Pleasant Street Center. Just fabulous. Thank you.
Okay, I've taken up enough time. Who's next? Thank you.
Other board members? Yes, Chris.
Thanks, Jackie. From what I've seen with Chris's work over there, I think that if there was a new senior center, you have a good shot of having it named after you at this point. So, good
In
luck.
honor of, right? Not
In honor of, whatever.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Something.
Just a room,
yeah,
just a room.
Or a street, maybe we'll give you a street. So it's good to see that things are progressing. I'm just wary of the future when this all comes to an end. Where are we gonna just continue to be able to fund this? Because obviously it's working and more people are participating, and I only see it increasing month over month over month. But we have to somehow make that fit in the budget for the future to continue, whether or not there's new building or not.
Sure.
So hopefully some of that stuff's taking place to find out how we can accommodate that in the future. Because I'd hate to see all this momentum come to an end,
Yes.
you know.
Yes,
Chris has it.
there is a good plan for sustainability. And I think that would be a larger discussion outside of here, and I don't wanna take up any more time, but there is a plan. And I think we have a good one.
Jen and I have been working, should I come up?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Jen and I have been working really well together, and as I continue up, overseeing the operations day to day, we do, I'm gonna say a long-term sustainability in our mind as we continue to look at programmings, because we do know, I remember when you first hired me for this position, that was what I said would be the biggest challenge that we're going to face, is at some point ARPA funds will run out. But the nice thing is we have time to be able to prepare for that. And that's something that's constantly in the front of our minds as we look and continue to do what we're doing. So specifically the long-term sustainability, And there's a lot of things that we can tweak a little bit to be able to keep doing that. So we are looking at that.
Yeah, and if you look at the amount that we've spent on the programming, it's around $81,000, and right now our expense budget since the ad last year in the general fund is $50,000. So that's not really far off. So if we charge minimal amounts for our programming, we start doing that and phasing that back in, we're automatically in good shape to sustain the level of programming that we have. Not to mention that a lot of the other towns that we've been visiting and getting information from Recalc, and they have a similar dynamic to us in community services. A lot of the town of Needham, they said that they pull from recreation at times too, from their funds. So there's a lot of different collaborations too that go on in different towns and different communities, and that's a lot of, so we have like a couple things flying around, and definitely have some good plans for sustainability that we could talk even further about offline.
And also, Nancy reminded me, we also just started a Friends of the Reading Senior 60+ community. It's something that was planted just in the spring, and I think they're pretty much set, pretty close to it by the end of the year. So we're excited to have that aspect to raise funds too, with that.
So the Chris and Jenna Center now.
Chris can take it. He's the one out, he's out there every day. And I couldn't be more proud of the team over there and what's happened with the short amount of time, and it's only been a year, really, since we started using the funds.
Today's is 1 year.
Yeah. Oh, today's your exact 1 year? Let's see, it's a sign.
And if I could, Fidel, I know they brought up the smell or whatever scenario from the heater and all that. Has this been alleviated, or can the ARPA money be spent on that, or what's the status of that?
I don't want to speak out of term. So we're continuing to investigate it. I can't say that we have found a definitive solution, but we haven't heard that it's a crisis anymore. I don't know if that is a true statement.
As long as it's.
Have you been hearing anything?
It has not been, like Fidel said, it has not been completely resolved, but it seems to have gotten a little bit better. I do have to say I want to thank facilities because they have been very responsive over the past couple months to make sure we get this resolved in the proper manner. And they have been very responsive, and I've been really grateful for that. They've been out numerous times, they've cleaned the system, they've checked the system. I know they were just out checking the chimney. So the facilities can talk more about it. I don't have all the details on it, but I do want to let you know that facilities has been phenomenal over the past handful of months on staying on top of it, keeping us updated as they go to when they can, and responding to the situation.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jackie. So, a couple things. One, I want to give kudos to you folks for really doing a lot of stuff in a short period of time, helping us figure out kind of how we can better serve the senior community, the 60+ community, putting together programs, trying different things, getting the number of people who want to come to the center up, which of course creates another problem, which is we were out of space, and as we get more and more people, that being out of space becomes a bigger and bigger issue. So I think it's really important that we're using these ARPA funds, I think, really well, that we're taking it forward to do the feasibility study as the next step to see what, opportunities are there, what we might be able to do, where we might be able to do it. I think that we are going to need to rejigger our budgets as a community in recognition of some of these needs as time goes on. We're kind of walking our way into it, which is great, seeing where there are other opportunities. One of the other things that Recalc is doing is looking at how other communities do it. We're not the only community that has their senior population, 60+ population, growing really quickly, although Reading's doing a real nice job keeping people here. How do they do it? What are the other funding mechanisms that are there? So 460+ is great. as a nonprofit. There are other activities and things that are done. We're trying to learn as we go out on these visits to other centers to see what they do, how they do it, and can we bring some of the magic into Reading as well. So I just want to say thank you folks for doing it. I do promise to get you that pointer at some point. I can't. It's gonna happen soon.
An inside joke.
So I was at a meeting,
It is our
oh my
time.
God, 6 or 8 months ago, and the darn pointer didn't work. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna buy a pointer for the center. And I did. And it's sitting on a shelf in my office. It has been there for,
Christmas coming, Mark.
yeah.
Should we take bets?
It's there.
Future agendas.
Ms. Janowski, I saw your hand up. Yes, please.
Karen Janowski, Precinct 2, 30 Azalea Circle, COA member. Mark, to your point about the feasibility study, that is such a huge part of the ARPA funding too. Do we have a timeline on when we will have that information? Because so much is hinging on that information.
So the bulk of it is hoped to be in time for April town meeting.
Okay, so by April town meeting. Do they have a deadline?
So certainly phases 1 and 2, right? 4 months, I think, is phase 2.
I wanna start by saying that we signed the contract today. They are coming to your COA meeting on December 11th. And it'd be great if you can ask them, those questions at that time.
Sooner rather than later.
On December 11th, they are coming to your meeting.
And then also, I want to give kudos absolutely to Chris and Jenna as well. Chris recently showed us a list of all of the things that he is, all the services and events that he's aligned for the indoors. I just want to mention too, that there are many of us who are in the 60+ community who enjoy outdoor activities, especially pickleball. And I will continue to say this, it's multi-generational, it's intergenerational, and it keeps us 60+ residents of the community very active. And it's great for mental health, physical health, socialization. And many of us, as we age, we feel more isolated, and that has been such an important part. So I do also want to keep that in your minds as well as we're planning different activities and how we're using space in the community in the future. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for board members? Thank you so much, Jenna.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, RMLD, welcome General Manager Greg Phipps, and I see we have a number of RMLD Board of Commissioners members, I'm not sure.
We're posted for a meeting, so we're all legal.
Okay.
In that case, you should call to order.
Oh, this is.
You should call to order in that case, right?
You actually have a quorum. Technically, I think you're right.
You hereby call us.
We're just here for moral support, like Greg needs.
Sign copies of the calendar.
That'd be great.
Free, but they're $10.
You guys realize that Phil's been a Board of Commissioners since 1987.
When I was born.
37 years.
Nice. Well, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. There's a massive amount of things that are happening at RMLD right now, lots of stuff going on. I'm just gonna hit some of the quick highlights. There's a lot of details. If you want to get more into some of the, I'm not gonna walk through all the slides, just give you a quick, half a dozen key takeaways. Anybody online or the audience here who wants to learn more, every month we have our Board of Commissioners and CAB meeting. So you guys all know, right, RMLD, been around since 1894, so a long time. We currently serve nearly 100,000 customers spread across 4 towns, right? So clearly Reading and North Reading and Wilmington and Linfield Center. We take the responsibility, like we provide electricity, right? So you guys know, for the senior centers, for every household, every business in the service territory, they provide, that energy provides lights, heat, circulation, refrigeration, computing power, transportation. So we realize that it's a responsibility to serve the community And the way we do it is by providing reliable, low-cost, non-carbon energy, electricity in particular. I'll walk you through some of the quick highlights here, but those three words, reliable, low-cost, non-carbon, are the core of our mission statement in terms of what we do. And it is a framework for how I make decisions going forward. Great. If you could go ahead and go to, I'm gonna move through these slides fairly quickly. If you wanna go in presentation mode, Lynn, and then, great, so perfect, right? So right there, mission, right? RMLD's team, right? It takes a team of people to do this. We're about 90 people strong right now. Very energized, very engaged in the business and serving their community. We're in the service mode, but what we provide is reliable, low cost, and increasingly non-carbon energy. You go to the next slide. Actually so let's pause you just for a second. A little bit of context, right? The wholesale energy market is changing massively. And when we talk about the wholesale energy market, that's power supply, as we call it. And there are four key pieces of the power supply. Electricity or energy itself is just one key component. But that 70% is a pass-through cost. We work very diligently to manage that cost. And then the other, just under 30%, is the cost to run the building and the trucks and the people and all the equipment and capital investment, et cetera. You guys remember, we are a not-for-profit entity, right? The profit that we generate goes back into the business. A couple of things that are happening that have changed over the past 3 years, past 18 months in certain cases, massive changes in terms of the environment that we're working in. The 2021 Massachusetts Climate Bill has accelerated electrification. The two key drivers of that are in buildings and transportation. We look at that legislation and the associated regulation, and we ask ourselves, because it has such a massive impact for us in the community we serve, similar activities are happening at the national level, and we are also now connected to Europe, particularly in the wintertime from an energy perspective. We used to be a very regional business. That is no longer the case. It's a very different business dynamic, but a lot of drivers are being driven by the legislation. So the question is, will that legislation change? Certainly it will, but our baseline is that the current laws that were put in place in 2020 and will remain, they're probably unlikely to soften. So we have to make plans. Our time horizon is, 1 to 2 to 3 decades out. So just like the way you guys think about the infrastructure of the town of Reading, we think about the infrastructure of RMLD in decade increments. So we're planning for 2040. We're planning for 2035. We're planning for 2050. Other big change, and in fact, what is now known as the IRA 22, but the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 on the federal level is providing access to new funds that we would not normally have access to. There's also the infrastructure bill that passed the previous year that also provides funds. Those funds are not limitless, and so we are moving aggressively in terms of how to leverage those. But that is the ratepayers are the primary source. We are in a no debt situation right now, but that's another source of funds. So a very different way to think about our business. I'll talk a little about in-territory generation. I'll spend a little more time on that. And I'll also spend a little bit of time in terms of land and resources. At the very bottom bullet there, we understand that in order to deliver what we deliver to our customers, it requires a team. So we continue to invest in our team. Caitlin, next slide, please. We sell electricity, fundamentally, right? We sell in the form of kilowatt hours and also in terms of demand or peaks. It is very important that we have a better sense of where that load is going. And there's a lot of data in this slide. I'll just give you some quick highlights, right? On the left-hand side is 2023. On the right-hand side is 2050. 2038 is in the middle. Each of those three groupings are months, and on the left-hand axis is kilowatt or megawatt hours in this particular case, but it's basically load. Our three primary markets, the orange is residential, the green is commercial, and the yellow is industrial. A nice balance, right? So it's really good. We have a very nice mix of business geographically, load, et cetera. The dark blue and the light blue represents our best estimate in terms of the load growth driven by EVs, and the light blue is load growth driven by a transition to air source heat pumps. You'll see in the case, and there's a lot more data behind this, having this data, and this is new analysis that we've been doing. We've been spending more time on data analytics. But this is a current snapshot. But you can see in the wintertime, which is on the left, January, and also on the right, which is December. The middle is the summer months. But we historically have been summer peaking, which has been driven by air conditioning loads primarily. And you can see in the middle chart there, 2038, and then on to the far right hand, which is 2050, that we are going to become a winter peaking entity. And you can see the blue, which is air source heat pump, becomes a large driver of our growth. Now, do we have it nailed down exactly when the adoption of air source heat pumps and EVs are going to happen? No, but this directly gives us an idea, and we're in the right ballpark. This has a massive implication in terms of how we design our network. Fundamentally, our network needs to support 2x, at least twice the load that it currently handles, and then also demand, it needs to handle about 70% higher peak demand. A lot of implications in terms of our build out. Next slide. One of the key drivers that's happening on the wholesale market is the legislation that was passed and a drive to decarbonize is having an implication on the wholesale market. Today, the wholesale market is just over 50% is powered by natural gas. That will slowly be phased out over time. And the speed at which that's happening is happening probably faster than most people have anticipated. The adoption of solar and wind into our territory, offshore wind, is going to help dramatically, but it is being delayed and will likely, not likely, it will be repriced. Two of the three offshore programs that had put in place a couple of years back, two of them are being rebid. The range before used to be around $80 a megawatt hour, and we're expecting when they come back in the first quarter to be in the range of $130 a megawatt hour, just to handle the cost of construction, et cetera. Transmission, and not to get too much detail, but there's a lot of changes. Anyways, all said and done, from our perspective, we are going to migrate back into our roots. We used to be both distribution and generation. So we're going to get back into the generation business. And when we talk about generation, you guys all know, we'll talk a little more about Station 1, right? Station 1 is at 230 Ash Street. That probably will not become a new generation station, but the concept behind it is to add generation spread around our territory for a couple of reasons. One is, and first and foremost, is for reliability, right? Our charter, our mission, reliable, low cost, non-carbon. So that reliability, we take it seriously, the responsibility for us to always make sure the lights are on, right? Keep the lights on. So part of the thing we're going to do is add generation within our territory. The current placeholder is about 40% of the energy that gets consumed in our territory will be generated within our territory. So that's from a reliability perspective. We talked about the different funding sources. We talked about the more volatile and increasing cost on the wholesale market. It is becoming less expensive for us to generate inside our territory. So we are setting the stage to do that as well. We're trying to anticipate these changes. Things take years to put in place, so we are moving now. Next slide. There's a bunch of stuff here. I'm not going to walk through all the details. In terms of the options, we mentioned the wind. There will not be any wind towers in our territory. There just won't be, right? We are, as you guys know intimately well, right? Land is at a premium. We all the towns we serve, right? Whether it's Reading, North Reading, Wilmington, or Linfield Center, there's very little open land. And what little open land there is, as Chuck mentioned earlier, a lot of it's conservation land that is wet. So there's not a lot of open land to put solar. Solar opens up. We are in the process of adding probably about 30 megawatts of solar over the next 3 or 4 years. I won't say quite every place we can, but in very logical places. But there'll be a limit, right? And the capacity factor, or because the sun doesn't shine 24/7, no big surprise, and it's even less in the wintertime, the capacity factor, just for a reference point, of solar is about 17%. That's 1/7. So if you have a capacity of 40 megawatts, you're only hitting that 40 megawatts about 40% of the time. That doesn't mean that we don't put solar in place, but solar in our network of in-territory solar, it will never be over 10% of our load required. So we'll do it. It's good economically. It's non-carbon, but it's not the end-all be-all. There won't be any wind, so we're trying to think of other creative ways. We can't go up, we can't go out, so we always think about what's the next direction to go, down. We do realize we're in New England, we sit on a massive, massive, massive collection of granite. So going down is not economically viable right now, but in the right-hand corner there, low temperature geothermal for electricity is something that we are doing research on and we are pursuing. We might be one of the early adopters of that 5 to 10 years down the road. As I mentioned before, solar PV in the lower left-hand corner, we're pursuing that. We're gonna put it on top of buildings. We'll do some canopy work. It won't be on top of every building, but where it makes sense. And of course, as we've mentioned before, we're pursuing the acquisition of land at Maple Meadows landfill in Wilmington, which will provide roughly about 8 megawatts of solar, 8 megawatts of F30 target. We're looking at hydrogen. We've been very creative over the past 15 months in terms of figuring out how to use hydrogen in our territory. We have a lot of irons in the fire. Hydrogen is still very early in its commercialization. It's been around for a long, long time. It's primarily a storage mechanism rather than a generation mechanism. And then the other upper right-hand corner that we're exploring that probably could be a bridge technology for us is carbon capture on fuel cells. So we're doing a lot of work to explore in-territory generation. Next slide, please, Caitlin. Just that's kind of big picture, big thread. I'm hitting a lot of key topics. As you guys understand, customers are primarily concerned about reliable, but the second key part of our mission is low cost. And so, and when customers think about cost, it's what's their monthly bill. And monthly bills are driven by two key factors. One is what are the rates, and there's two components of rates. What are basically our tariff rate, or the rates that we basically we vote on with the board and we set. That's less than 30% of the overall cost structure, and then the other 70% is power supply, which is passed through. When we put together charts like this, we are basically trying to forecast what power supply is going to look like in 2024. This is currently our best estimate. We're going to go and re-up. We look at these every month, but we'll do another presentation in January. We basically don't change our rates until March of any year, so we're looking way down the road. But we are working hard to educate our customers in terms of how rates affect the monthly bill, and more importantly, how usage affects the monthly bill. 2 more slides, please. 1, 2, there's a commercial example again for look at later on. The last piece, and then we'll do kind of a quick Q&A. We have been at the Ash Street campus for almost almost 4 decades. As you guys know from previous discussions, that location has a lot of value to more than just RMLD. And as we have spoken before, we are not only open, but we are actively working with the town of Reading to figure out how to better use that property. So we've done quite a bit of work in the past 6 or 8 months, including starting to look at what it would look like. There are 3 properties in the southeast corner that are behind the current RMLD building, 232, 244, and 236. We've had informal discussions with each one of them. Kind of explained at the end of the day, we need land. One of the key threads I want you to walk away with at RMLD is in land acquisition mode right now. And we're in land acquisition mode to primarily provide for distribution equipment and generation equipment, and not just in Reading, in Wilmington, North Reading, and Linfield. In fact, next week I meet with the board for the water department in Linfield, looking at some property that they have. It'll have to be a different structure as opposed to us owning it. It'll be a long-term lease, and there's a lot of details behind that. But the ultimate goal in terms of our network and why this fits into part of it, this would be the southern of probably 4 satellites, Maple Meadows in the west, Linfield in the east, and Wilmington area, the North Reading Wilmington area in the north. There would be a combination of battery storage as well as generation, ultimately, low temperature geothermal, but we've got to work to get there. So land is a critical piece. So the campus here, Ben Cares will provide a little more detail here in a few minutes. But it takes time to get things done. You guys know this intimately well, and we are accelerating now to do, to figure out what to do with the Ash Street campus, because by the time we get everything done, you know, the goal that the town manager and I made earlier this year is to get this done by the end of the decade. It seems like a long way away, but it's not. So those are the quick highlights. If you go to the very last slide, please, Caitlin, thank you. So a couple of key initiatives, right? Land. Land is hard to come by. We have a pretty good sense of what we're going to need over the next 30 years. Energy storage, that's a near-term goal. I talked very briefly about it before, but you know, we have planned to put 20 megawatts, at least 20 megawatts added to our 5 megawatt system in our network at the end of next year or early the following year. That's partially for peak management to help keep our cost structure down. It's also for reliability. So reliability is a new piece. The fragile nature of the ISO New England network is not something for anybody to be afraid of, but we take the responsibility. We're here to serve our community, and we want to make sure we always keep the lights on. Generation's going to be a pocket of it, and then there's a bunch of other pieces in there. The transform the campus is the second half of this decade, but we got to be working on it now, and we have transitioned out of where we were over the past decade of maintaining the network because load growth was basically flat. We're now in the mode of how do you build the network to handle twice the load and 70% of the capacity. So those are the big takeaways. The world of energy is changing massively. We are very proactive in terms of anticipating that change. We are being viewed in the industry as being very innovative. We are taking action, but we realize our mission is very clear. Reliable, keep the lights on, low cost, make it affordable, and make it non-carbon. Questions?
I'll go.
I'll go.
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned the campus. Obviously, it's a major goal. To me, does Wilmington present the most opportunity for like rooftop solar, or they're not really interested? Because that's where there's so many industrial big buildings.
Yeah, so the industrial, so the way we look at solar, given the fact that the IRA 22 is in place, we're going to be in the mode of owning generation assets, and so industrial rooftops is a part of it. So we are proactively putting in place a prioritization of buildings to go after. But the biggest piece is Maple Meadows, and that's going to be there's work to be done to make that available. But in terms of open land, and I say open.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, so it's primarily Wilmington and North Reading. There's not much available in Linfield, and we know intimately well, right? There's very little available in Reading. So the answer to that question is, but the other piece, Carlos, is when we think about reliability, the reliability is also to make sure that the network, it is becoming already bi-directional in terms of we're no longer just, importing from the wholesale market and dropping it into houses and buildings. Those housing and buildings and our assets will have generation and storage assets. So the network is going to be a lot more intelligent and bi-directional. To answer your question, it's going to be a ring.
Yeah, and I applaud all these efforts by the state, but like to be just electric dependent, scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, well,
honestly, and from just the load demand that you're projecting, and obviously, auto manufacturers are going to be primarily all EV, in the next.
Question is how fast, not if.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
No solution's perfect.
No. I just think having a diversified resources is better than one. But again,
that is exactly why when we look at so that's part of the reason why we're bringing generation back in. So we're not going to isolate ourselves from the wholesale market.
No. Right. That makes sense. No, it makes sense.
So this is back to your point. This is about risk management, and again, reliability and low cost is about risk management. And for us, to be honest, it is a fascinating puzzle because there's no obvious cookie cutter answers. Here's how you do it.
No. I love this stuff.
Yeah, we love this stuff. We are thankful to have the work that we get to do each day.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of moving parts.
Fascinating.
Thank you.
There's Chris.
Thanks, Jackie. And thanks, Greg, as always. I always say that it's fortunate that we have RMLD. If anything happens, the power's on 3 minutes later. Like this, we're very fortunate to be in the 4 cities and towns, like you mentioned. So in your projection of 2050 doubling the load, et cetera, does that mean double the people, or what is the?
No.
How many more?
No, our forecast is, so right now we have about 27,000 residential meters, total of 32,000.
Double the employees is what I mean.
Oh, no.
So how?
No. So we're gonna, one of the things we're gonna do is dust off some analysis that I think we shared with you guys about a year ago. We're expecting to be, so double the load, 20 to 30% higher in terms of count, roughly currently.
Yeah, that's what you said last time.
Yeah, that hasn't changed. That goes to part of the there's a lot more streamlining of internal processes. There's a lot more use of data and we'll call it expert systems for lack of a better word. We're not going to call it AI because it's not what it is. And then our distribution network will become a lot more automated, where we have a control center that we manage currently 24/7. That control center will have a lot more going through it over time. And it needs to be, and one other key thing, right? Because we are an electric utility and because there's the increasing dependence on electricity, both physical security and cybersecurity, we take very, very seriously. And we don't make those too public because we don't want to draw attention to what we're doing. But there's a significant investment in terms of both physical and cybersecurity as well.
And hypothetically, if everybody in Reading got solar, would that make your life easier? It wouldn't?
It doesn't move the needle fundamentally. I mean, it helps, right?
Percentage-wise, it doesn't help.
Yeah, and the reason being is that, unlike Texas or Arizona, where the capacity factors are in the height, when I say capacity factors, the availability of light to generate electricity, they're in the 30 to low 40, high 30s, that range. We're in the sub 20s.
Yeah, right.
We're just 1.7. I mean, it's
half.
Yeah, not even.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, right? But so and I came out of the solar industry. I think it's amazing, but it for our territory, you need a lot of horizontal space. Our portfolio, if as you look at our portfolio in terms of managing, we're buying a lot of solar projects, but many of them are getting pushed out for availability of product. But the bigger issue in New England is the amount of sun and the amount of land. So it's a key part of the portfolio, but it's not the silver bullet. There is no single silver bullet for us. So I got to manage the risk. Back to Carlos' question. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Greg. So 2 questions. One, we've talked a little bit about, the other we haven't, but I've been just thinking about it. The first question is, what are you working on in terms of new construction that's going to be taking place, setting up incentives, working closely with the development efforts for new buildings, new municipal buildings, new industrial buildings?
Good question. So there's a new school that's being built here. We're getting plugged into that program. In the summer, we actually introduced a weatherization program, which we had never had before. We're kind of walking before we run. We have that tied to the installation of heat pumps. So those are 2 cases. We're not in the business of trying to set building codes, et cetera, but we're very supportive. And so at the end of the day, we talk about this at our meetings, the least expensive energy is the energy you don't use, right? And so, very, very, basic stuff, right? Air sealing homes and putting insulation in is a good starting point. So those are the kind of things, we look at our incentives in place to focus more and more on those, but how to be as energy efficient as possible. And then solar is the piece that we're re-looking at the solar incentive structure. Our recent analysis is suggesting that from a ratepayer base, it's probably better for us to invest in RMLD-owned assets as opposed to individual home assets and storage as well. And I think when we talk about storage, battery storage, there's lots of different storage, but we talk about electricity storage.
So second question, so I've been driving by the Wakefield light plant a lot.
Yeah.
Is there any benefit to regionalization?
Well, yes, there is. Right.
Just it seems that it's growing, it's a mile down the road.
Well, interestingly enough, You know, we're beginning, so we talk amongst each other, we help each other, you know, we confer with each other, et cetera. We, as RMLD, are distinctive, and we're the only MLP out of the 40 where the majority of load is outside the town that we're hosted in. Our view is that energy is increasingly a scale business, and all the things that we talk about, right? I mean, it's a business and it's scale and it's critical. We are contiguous with Wakefield, Middleton, Danvers, Peabody, and then a couple miles up 95, there is Georgetown, Groton, Ipswich. So there is a economic benefit and a reliability benefit for us to be more closely aligned. So the concept of super regional is a concept that we're trying to do realistically we're trying to set the stage so we can do that. But right now the focus is let's get the territory that we're responsible right now in the groove, kind of set up, and we could talk to the rest of them. But, you know, and part of we haven't talked, you know, not to get into the architectural detail of our network, but we're designing the network so they can easily, and it does, we're interconnected right now, but a higher capacity network, because the things that are happening to us are most likely to happen to the rest of us, when I say to the regional. So the concept, so we're gonna work at it from a business side, but that's a couple years, 5 years down the road realistically, but a very appropriate question and comment.
Karen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for coming this evening. It's nice to see you all. Just wondering, so we announced at town meeting that we got our Parker roof finished, and I was wondering what are the next steps we could take here to
Parker School?
Yeah, for the Parker Middle School.
So we have to work, so we have a whole bunch of policies and procedures we need to do to do any asset builds. And so we're working through some processes associated with 30B and we've got some mechanisms that are allowing us to get that. It won't be till next year by the time we get there in earnest, despite our best efforts this summer. Coming for some of the buildings. And it's not, so there's buildings here that we have on our short list. There's buildings in Wilmington and there's buildings in Linfield, and also there's 2 buildings in North Reading. So again, the focus is to allow the purchasing mechanism to allow us to accelerate.
So when you say this, you mean 2024?
2024, start in 24.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, let us know what we need to do.
Will do. You can ask questions. We'll talk later. Well, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Where you go?
Yes. So in terms of the 2024 monthly bill slide, I tuned into your meeting, Board of Commissioners briefly last week, and I see that this is effective in March.
Of 2024, yep.
Yes, is this finalized? Will the board be?
So because we had to approve the operating budget and the capital budget, and because we are not-for-profit, it's linked to rates.
Yeah.
So we historically have tied the two together. And the only piece that we presented, that we made recommendations to the board and the board approved, were with the tariffs, were the small piece, the 30% on the top. The power supply piece, literally, it's passed through, it changes every month. And so we're gonna go back and we always look at it, but we're gonna do another presentation to the Board of Commissioners in January. And because at that point in time, we'll be a month and a half away. We do have to do filings to the DPU within 60 days of a rate change. So we're gonna go back and revisit it, represent it. Currently, we don't expect the tariff to change, but we definitely expect the power supply to change. And like this year proved to be a more milder year due to weather. Weather is the key driver of usage. And as a result, usage was lower. And as a result, not just for us in New England, but also for Europe. And I mentioned before that we are linked through LNG shipments to Europe. They also had a very mild winter last year and a mild summer. So if that mild continues on, and right now the forecast for the winter, this upcoming winter, 23 and 24, is to be relatively mild. The point being is I don't expect, there'll be volatility in terms of prices, but we literally every day look at forward price curves. So I think the first half of the year, that's probably a reasonable estimate. It could be a little bit lower in reality. What happens next summer and next winter, we're predicting weather. Does that help?
Almanac.
Almanac, yeah, farmers.
Greg and board members, thank you for your time on this. I think I can say that we have a consensus that we're not only very pro RMLD, but appreciative of the fact that we have really great reliability, good rates. I'm on the Mass Municipal Association Energy and the Environment Committee, and we hear from select board members and mayors from across the state, many of whom are in investor-owned utility territories and that are dealing with some really difficult and thorny and expensive issues for their constituents. And Greg was very generous with his time in talking to some MMA staffers this summer about MLPs and about just your
Things we're trying to
business
do.
plan. Yeah, and I appreciate that. We appreciate that.
And we're trying to learn, right? It's so we thank you for the opportunity. We take it seriously and we enjoy it immensely, so thank you.
Thank you.
To adjourn the meeting. What? Do you have to adjourn your meeting?
Can we make a motion to adjourn? Mr. Talbot made a motion, second, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you. So next, Ben Cares, Economic Development Director, with a brief presentation on Community Preservation Act Study Committee. Just as background on this, we heard from the CPA Coalition, I believe in September or October, and so we're thinking about next steps there.
Awesome. I will definitely keep it brief. This is in the packet, so I actually might skip through some of the intro slides. I encourage you to review them. Also, we taped the meeting for the Financial Forum and Economic Development Summit where Andrew McNichol and I gave this presentation. We were asked to basically distill that original CPA presentation down to something a little bit more Reading specific. So I will move through these pretty quickly and kind of pull out kind of the highlights here. This is a property tax surcharge. It ranges between 0.5% and 3%. Please take note of the exemptions that this can include. I think that addresses some concerns on disproportionate burden on seniors and people that are low income and commercial and industrial properties in Reading. Next slide, please. The Community Preservation Act in general helps to fund housing, open space and recreation, historic adaptive reuse or historic preservation, and on a regular basis, on an annual basis, you have to allocate 30% of those funds across each of those three categories that you can see in this slide here. I think another important note here is that the state has been good on its promise to actually match funds, and there's been a lot of traction in communities in Massachusetts because of that, and a lot of success with matching those funds. So it is not just a pure surcharge tax, it is something that enables matching. So you can imagine that that stretches a taxpayer dollar further, which is a really great incentive and benefit of this type of taxation for revolving funds for these types of projects. Next slide, please. We ran an example on the average value of a single family home here in Reading based on FY23 data. That results in basically an $84 annual payment to a 1% CPA surcharge. So we assumed a 1% CPA surcharge in that calculation there. So you can expect on average a single family home to pay $84 on an annual basis into the fund. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, back one slide, please, really quick. You can see that we include one of those exemptions in there, right? The first $100,000 of your property value. Next slide, please. Just a quick map of how many people have adopted CPA to date. You can see there's many cities and towns that have. 0 communities have revoked CPA. So it is a really great mechanism. It funds a lot of excellent projects, especially in communities that struggle to raise funding through nonprofit groups, especially for affordable housing. There's a lot of great success stories on the CPA website about many of these communities and their projects. Next slide, please. Nice transition, I didn't know we had that. So this is the general table that they provide on what are some of the eligible projects. In the presentation at the very end, there's a much more detailed table. So if there are questions that come up tonight in Q&A about what's eligible and what's not, I highly recommend that you take a look at that table at the end of the presentation. I myself am not yet fully versed on exactly what is and isn't eligible. There's a lot of resources related to that question. Next slide, please. I'll just briefly kind of run through these slides. So these are the Reading specific projects that Andrew McNichol and I asked Concom, and Andrew McNichol looked at affordable housing himself. We asked the Recreation Department what could be possible with CPA funding. And you can see here we have a number of open space projects that are related to sort of Conservation Commission initiatives and open space, and leveraging some of those natural areas that we have here in Reading. Next slide, please. Recreation, so, playground, park and field improvements. I know there's a lot of community needs for additional recreation for seniors and even for youth. We've done a lot of great work at the Birch Meadow Complex. You can see that that's cost the town a lot of money in taxpayer dollars and in borrowing. This could be a very viable revolving budget for those types of projects. Next slide, please. Historic resources. So there are a number of historical properties here in Reading that could benefit from utilizing these funds for rehabilitation restoration. That includes the Pleasant Street Center, that includes Station 1, which was that building right next to the Reading Municipal Light Department that we've looked at time and time again, as well as 186 Summer Avenue. Next slide, please. Housing. This is probably one of the more important issues, I think, in Reading because of the lack of financing that we have for housing and affordable housing. And so CPA is a very viable source of funding for those types of projects. So thinking about things like additions to the local HTF, emergency subsidy and short-term aid services. So that's not just, it's not constructing housing, it's also supporting families that need housing as well. And I do think that over time we'll see that need rise here in Reading, and that demand will probably grow, and we'll want to have funding for that. Next slide, please. So how do we adopt CPA? So tonight, really what the focus is talking about a study group. On the agenda, it's listed as a study committee. I believe that the select board can elect to nominate those members. I don't know if it's required. We'll take a look at that next week. And I'll get back to you on that. But the study group, its intention is to form a proposal. That proposal, there's many great examples on the CPA website. Natick did a very nice glossy one that I really enjoyed reading. Highly recommend checking that one out. But basically what that does, it is a proposal that the study group, which is comprised of several different typically residents that can champion affordable housing, open space recreation, historical, adaptive, and rehabilitation uses. And so that group puts together this proposal that is used to inform town meeting residents and others about CPA and what it can do for that community, and sort of the suggestions on when it should be voted upon. Because you'll see later in this presentation, it does require a ballot vote. And so the study group really thinks critically about what are the needs of the community, how can we sort of march forward and bring this to the ballot and have it be a successful vote as well. So that's the whole intention of the study group. We are working internally right now to work with some of the commissions and committees to identify some individuals. But again, at the end of the day, the study group is a resident-led group, and that's critical, having those types of constituents lead this cause, because it does end up being a campaign eventually for voting on a ballot. Next slide, please. So like I said, we'd run through that study group. The proposal would go to town meeting. If town meeting votes an affirmative vote on it, then it would go to the hopefully November ballot, because there are many studies that show that it's more successful when you have a presidential election versus other times, because there's just such a higher, voter turnout for those scenarios. So we imagine having a vote during town meeting. I don't foresee it being a 5% registered voters signed petition, but what's on the ballot, residents would have the opportunity to vote yes or no. Next slide, please. So this is the sort of updated slide here about a timeline for adopting CPA. If we were to sort of push it forward for a November ballot vote, we would need to quickly put together our study group. Ideally, what I've asked for is people to send names of individuals by November 28th. I'm working with Jackie on a couple of individuals as well, and I would really urge everybody here to think about some additional candidates in those realms of CPA allocations like open space, affordable housing that you think might be a good fit for that study group. I've seen those study groups be as big as 12 members from my research, so I think that that's an okay number to reach for. We only have 3 interested individuals thus far. So we are still working on that. We would need to, once we form the study group, we would need to outline the CPA proposal, which would be on for either the April town meeting or a special town meeting, depending on how quickly we can put together that type of proposal. February through April would be information gathering, assessing community needs, building out that proposal. We would want to gather support for the potential special town meeting or regular spring town meeting, and we would need to complete that CPA proposal ahead of that. And then May through October, that would be really the campaigning months leading up to the November vote. What usually happens is a campaign for CPA adoption is launched. We use the proposal as well as additional promotional materials. When I say we, I really don't mean me or any of you. It is typically a resident-led group, and it is typically a CPA ballot question committee. In order for them to raise funding and to run a campaign, they do need to file as a ballot question committee. And there's a separate process for that, which is outlined on the CPA, the state CPA website. And so, again, if there were to be a special town meeting, I spoke with Laura Gem, our town clerk, that would need to happen probably sometime in June 2024 for the timing to work for it to be placed on the November ballot. And in November, we would vote on CPA adoption. Next slide, please. So this is all about overseeing and spending the CPA funds. I'll go through these pretty quickly. Next slide. So when all is said and done, you put together a community preservation committee by a bylaw/ordinance. That consists of 5 statutory members, optional at-large members for a maximum committee size of 9 individuals. Next slide, please. The roles of committee are to assess community CPA needs on a regular basis. So that's when we're all done and we have a CPA, they sort of continually look at what are the community needs, what are we going to be allocating CPA funding for. They accept and review project proposals, they get input from the public and boards and committees, and then they recommend CPA projects to town meeting / the select board. Next slide, please. That's the brief presentation. So Andrew and I, the community development director, were asked to sort of create information around this. But again, I want to just make sure that this is meant to be sort of a really like a resident-led and select board-led initiative. And we're here to play a supporting role in it. So I can answer any questions that you have. Otherwise, we'll continue to work on this over the next couple of weeks.
Thank you, Ben. Questions from the board?
All right.
Question, just, we were talking about, June special town meeting,
Potentially.
if April doesn't work.
Potentially, yeah. Yep.
Okay, well, it's been a while since we've had special town meetings, but, depending on what's on our docket, sometimes town meeting members are grateful that we don't have to attack all of it in September and November and have a one-night town meeting. It's 1 year, do you remember this? We had 5 town meetings in 1 year. It was a busy year, yeah.
We do have MBTA communities in April, which I think is the spotlight thing, and so it's just something to consider thinking about when to bring this to town meeting. All right.
Because the other thing for us all to be thinking about also is that we're going to be likely approaching town meeting and voters with 2 substantial projects and this, all roughly in the same time frame, within 6 months. We just need to really think through all the different pieces and how they might happen. And so thinking of a special town meeting in June-ish time frame conceivably could be a senior center proposal in that, realistically.
Okay.
Or plus or minus.
Okay.
But probably, November may be too late, and April's probably too early.
It's a matter of priorities. Again, there's a lot of statistics that show that it's a much more successful vote on a presidential ballot.
Yeah.
That being said, I really believe in us in organizing our community around this type of effort, so we'll have to sort of tease out that timeline together.
Right, plus it brings in free money is kind of the point. And
Right.
95 communities are already doing it. How many are planning to get on the same cycle?
I
Winchester.
don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Winchester is doing it.
Absolutely Winchester. I think I heard like 20
Yeah.
something like that.
Right, so we're at the potential of being on the wave or behind the wave. Those are kind of the current choices.
We are here to support the initiative however we can.
Carlo, and then Chris.
There's a quick question. You mentioned 3 are interested, and you've seen up to 12. Is there a minimum that we need to, like, what's the?
There's no minimum. It's sort of our best judgment, right? I would imagine that at minimum 5, because that's what comprises a CPA committee, right? Like when you're done, when all is said and done.
Okay, that's where I'm going, yeah.
So a minimum of 5 would be great,
Okay.
but I think we'd love to see 9, which is the maximum for a committee. I think maybe up to 12, but that's
okay.
for all of us to decide together.
Okay, thanks.
Chris.
Thanks, Jackie. I'm surprised Mark said the quiet part out loud, but he did. And I agree with that it's all gonna be coming at the wrong time, most likely. And we gotta kind of prioritize what we're gonna do. I think that the notion of having a one-night town meeting on this is impossible. It's gonna go well beyond that. But that's not up for us 5, it's up to 20-something thousand people, so see how it goes.
Even if we produce a proposal, that's a great starting point, whether or not we are successful now, so.
Thank you, Ben.
Absolutely.
Just to say my thoughts, I agree with Ben that I think a study, if we did have a study committee, it should include Conservation Commission, CPDC, Housing Authority, and Rec Committee, because those reflect kind of the 4 uses of the funds. I also think we should include a member of the Finance Committee because of the impact on finances, and a select board member, for what it's worth. But I also hear my other board members' concerns about timing on this. Question for you. To the best of your knowledge, could CPA funds be used for pickleball?
Interesting. Again, it's sort of difficult to decipher sometimes what CPA funds can and can't be used for.
I'm gonna say yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna say
It
yes.
can be
Recreation.
I'm gonna go right up there.
recreation, yes,
Building
but
parks.
not indoor facilities, okay? So keep that in mind.
Open recreation, open space.
I believe open space
We
and
do
recreation.
need clever people on this committee is what I have heard from Arlington, like the clever people figure out how to get this stuff done.
Right, so, but again, that table at the end does a really good explanation on all of those.
So it sounds like this landed with a bit of a resounding thud with my fellow board members. But that might be overly cynical, but we will have some discussions soon
Wait, what do you
about the
mean?
timing
What do you
on
mean a
this. No, I just, I think I think it comes, as I've heard from other board members, it comes during a time when there are competing priorities. So let's see how it goes.
Well, okay, cause the flip side of that is we're trying to figure out how to pay for some of these priorities, like potentially renovating a historical Pleasant Street Center. So that's a historical building. So if we're heading towards building a senior center, then this is one way to help fund it. So I didn't mean to make a thud.
No, it's
because-
okay.
Cause I
And
know
I'm
it's a
not-
lot of
I'm
work,
not,
but, alright.
I realize that this timeline is very aggressive, and so I wanted to get Ben in front of this sooner rather than later.
No, I appreciate that. I wanna be clear, since I got elected and since he came on board, we've been asking him about this. And we've just waiting. When is the right time? And you can't start 2 years ahead of time and you can't start 90 days before, so.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
Could I
Thank
put
you.
one punctuation point? Jackie?
Yes.
Oh, thanks. So, the reality for the community is that we always have 2 or 3 large projects going on at the same time. And in fact, 3 of them are about to finish in terms of the tax impact, so Wood End School, the high school, and the library. This community is used to managing multiple big projects all at the same time. So it's not, the reason I brought it up was just so that we're all kind of thinking about how do we think about all these things? How do we sequence them in? in that timeframe. I think Karen's point is spot on. This is money that pays for some of the things that we're hoping to do in that timeframe. And other projects that could be part of it also. So I want us to be thinking, but as Karen said, we've been talking about this for years, and that we were encouraged to slow it down till the presidential election
Yep,
is the reality.
for the turnout.
Yeah, for the turnout.
And Winchester was the same path. They
Yeah.
were also looking at it in early 22. Everybody put it on hold to like say, well, if we start now, we're just like getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. So I don't want to be recorded as a thud, I want to be recorded as a
Yeah,
pro.
sorry. Also, I have to say at every Mass Municipal meeting I go to, and when you ask communities, the representatives there, they're like, oh my God, that is awesome. And who wouldn't want to be on a committee where your whole job is like spending money on fun stuff? So I think we could, as the study group gets going, we could have a lot of good, fun discussions. And it doesn't have to be 1%, it could start as low as 5.
0.5.
0.5, sorry, 0.5.
Yeah, well, and I remember in the presentation back in September, the CPA Coalition basically said that they recommend that communities aim for the magic number of about $100 on the average.
Oh, I thought I heard
tax bill.
50, but okay.
50, right, yeah, or 50 to 100 maybe, you know, and they kind of work backward from there, which your numbers that you showed were in line with that, so. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
So next item, starts on page 51 of our packet. We heard, right before our last board meeting, from Minority Leader Brad Jones that, in the legislature, the Committee on Third Reading had requested, that we strike from the home rule petition that was adopted by this select board and by town meeting to, establish an affordable housing trust fund, that it strike the whereas clauses that are on lines, looks like 1 through 13 on our packet pages 54 and 55. And just as a future note to home rule petition drafters in Reading, whereas clauses, we can include them, but in our own language, but they should not be included in home rule petitions because they can't be made part of Mass General laws. So I think, and correct me, Fidel, if I'm wrong, what we're being asked to do is to strike lines 1 through 13 of the home rule petition. Is that correct?
That is correct. And there's a motion for you that was run by town council that.
Go ahead. Yeah, and I just, you know, we got this on the eve at the 11th hour before our last meeting, and I just wanted town council to confirm that we didn't need to take this again before town meeting, and he said that we do not.
Excellent, thank you. Would you like a motion?
Yes, please.
Okay. Move to support and approve the proposed floor amendment to House Bill 1341, striking 5 non-binding whereas clauses in lines 1 through 13, as such amendment is within the scope of the general public objectives of the home rule petition authorized by the subsequent town meeting vote of November 14th, 2022.
Second.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Mark. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Or no, any discussion? Sure, sorry.
Well, so line 1 will start chapter 140 of the Acts of 2001. That's all it is.
Yes.
So we're just really striking the word whereas.
And all those sentences that are from 1 through 13. No. All those sentences are stricken. Lines 1 through
Lines
13.
1 through 13.
Lines were 1?
Because state laws can't have whereas clauses in them.
Okay. So we are gonna start at section 1 on line 14.
They're preamble, it's like.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Any further discussion? Okay, so we have a motion by Karen, second by Mark. All those in favor? Opposed? We're 5-0. Great, thank you. And hopefully that means we can get some movement on this and we can finally get a little bit of progress on this vehicle for affordable housing in town. Okay, so moving on, appointing department heads to screening committee. So just by way of background, as you know, we've appointed Mark and myself, as well as Alan Folds, town meeting moderator, to the town manager screening committee. We tonight are looking at appointing up to 2 department heads, and those department heads must be Reading residents. And then on November 29th, next Wednesday, we'll be interviewing the at-large applicants, and we'll be voting on those applicants on December 5th. So I open the floor to discussion about department heads to be nominated for the screening committee. Mark?
Nice, Jackie. So, I think that the structure we used last time where we had one, department head that reported to the town manager and one department head that didn't report to the town manager has a lot of merit, because those are kind of both sides of things. One is more kind of direct, I don't want to use the word control, but the other side is more influence and participating in things. And I think that the right candidates from my perspective would be Chief Clark on the public safety side, and Amy Lannon as the director of the library on the other side. Other side meaning direct report and non-direct report, just to be clear, sorry.
Which is which?
The direct
Who's it?
report would be Chief Clark,
Okay.
and the non-report would be the director of the library. One of the things that I think is really strong in terms of library director is that we do have I don't know the right term anymore, is it the Department of Equity and Social Justice?
That's strange, yep.
Okay, so that is under the library also, and that's another really important aspect of the town, and I think the relationship between the town manager and the library is a really important one for us. And I think, to me, those are the folks that I would see being the right ones to fill those slots.
Carlo?
Thank you. I would love to see Chief Clark and Laura Gem on the search committee. And I think we discussed up to 2 residents, right? Doesn't have to be 2, right? Up to 2 residents at large.
We did up to.
We did up to 2.
Right, so I have no problem appointing or requesting or talking about, adding on Chief Burns, because he went through it last time and it worked out well. So that's where I'm sitting right now, is Chief Burns, Chief Clark, and Laura.
Do you want me to leave the room? Would you be more comfortable if I left the room?
Nope, you have to stay here and be embarrassed.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
I just didn't want to make anybody comfortable. I'll leave the room.
I mean, I don't.
Okay.
I'm okay.
And that would leave one resident, the way I'm proposing.
Okay, so who are you, out of the 2, who are you proposing for the 2 department heads?
I'm proposing 3,
Okay. And 1 resident?
1 resident.
Okay.
Did we say up to 2?
We said up to 2.
Yep.
So that would be a change from what we said.
No, it's in writing.
What about so is the change the 3 department heads?
Yeah, because if it's up to 2, it could be 1. And it would be an
It
extra,
can't be 3.
But department heads also, we said up to 2 department heads.
did we? That contradicts both, doesn't it?
What you
What you proposed, yes.
Yeah, no, but if we pick
Yes.
1 resident, what do we do?
We could have one fewer person, I
I don't think we proposed 3 department heads,
suppose,
I think we proposed 2.
I guess you would have to vote on the makeup of the committee again? I don't know.
Yeah, no, we already did that.
Okay, well, all right. Semantics. Chief Burns and Chief Clark and Laura.
Okay, point where that I was gonna make to be on this committee, we're actually, we are focusing on department heads that are also residents, so that, I could see where, anyway, yes, because of our charter, they have to be department heads, so that limits who our department head choices can be. Because we are focused on residents.
Correct, and then
So that's library director.
can we
Chief and chief.
can we consider at-large steering committee members who have not applied? So for example, Laura Gem, Chief Burns, Chief Clark have not applied as at-large committee members. Okay, but you're saying 3 department heads. And just one at-large committee member.
And just and Amy, the library director, is also a resident. Is that, have I missed anyone? Is that just 4 that we can think of to choose from?
Are you asking which department heads are
Yes.
Reading residents?
Yeah.
My understanding is we have 4.
Okay.
Chief
I
Clark,
can't think of
Chief
anyone else.
Burns,
Yeah.
Laura Jem, and Amy Lannon.
Laura is not a department head, but she reports to Matt.
Okay.
Okay, who's not a resident?
Who is not a resident.
Who's not a Reading resident, so that's where the charter gets in the way. Okay, we need to have positions filled by residents. And luckily, some people can still afford to live in this town and work for this town, so that's good.
I guess I was just clarifying that Laura is not a department head.
Yes.
Not that she does not live in town.
Right.
She does live in town
Yes,
on Main
understood.
Street.
Okay,
She's just
understood.
not a department head.
Other thoughts from board members? Chris?
Thanks, Jackie. I mean, I've never heard Laura mentioned ever on anything that we've done. I don't know if that's a good thing, that we've neglected her because she's been here for at least a decade, right? So I think it's a unique take on what we would be doing because she's been here and overlooked every single time. It never gets brought up. So I could see where, that could add a different mix to things. But I also agree with Chief Clark as well as being one of the department heads. So I would kind of go along with Carlo's thing with Chief Clark and Laura, only because, I think it's definitely a different way of looking at it. So I could see me being okay with that.
Well,
Go ahead.
Karen?
Well, I was gonna.
And then
Who did you
Mark?
propose again? Who did you suggest?
Chief Clark and Amy Lannon.
Okay, I can, I could be persuaded either way. I think we're building some consensus around Chief Clark and, so we could just build some consensus around, the library director or our hardworking Clark. Mark.
So, couple things. I think one of the pieces that was very successful the last time this committee ran, and actually the time before it, I believe also, was to have some, not just department heads. I think we could certainly fill this committee with department heads or town employees. And I think that's exactly what we don't want to do here. I think we want to have some representation of the community outside of that as well. And that's kind of the structure that we used last time that I think, again, was very, very effective. I think also having, and I know we're not really discussing the at-large members, but it was brought up. I think having a couple of at-large members makes good sense to get some different perspectives outside of town hall in the community. Part of what we're trying to do is build kind of community support for what we're doing here as well, and I think that's really demonstrating it really strongly. So I'm really kind of in favor of that, and I'm just in concern, we're not overlooking or neglecting anybody. In fact, I'd say in having Alan Folds as town moderator, we're absolutely acknowledging something of history and something of longevity and something of someone who's been in the community for a long period of time as a leader. So I think that we had structured that initially, and this proposal kind of is suggesting, no, I want to just kind of scrap that. I don't think that's right.
I wasn't going against Alan, or we already appointed Alan last time. I never even mentioned him, so I'm not sure why he got brought up. I only mentioned Laura's never being brought up ever before in the 3 years that I've been here, being appointed to anything, ever.
Nor
That's where
have
I'm
many other employees of the town.
But it's not that we're not appointing the IT director or something like that, or some other, it's, Laura is at the top of a certain subsection of other people. It's, in order for you to get someone at the top of us that is an actual Reading resident, managing a subset of people, that is where you're finagling it down. You know what I mean? We can't go with Matt, he lives in Methuen or whatever, so you can't.
Right, but I'm suggesting that what we talked about before was having representation of department heads up to 2. And the current suggestion that you're bringing forward is to change that. And I'm suggesting there was a reason why we said 2 last time, that I think is still valid. So I'm not comfortable kind of having 3 out of 7 people.
I'm not saying,
Okay, I think only
I'm not
Carlo
saying
brought that up, but we should be
no,
clear.
I'm only 2.
Back to 2.
Carlos, unfortunately, we've already
Yeah, I can
voted.
retract that, I already did, I already did.
Okay.
So you're screwing things up.
Okay,
I think
okay.
having a non-direct report is actually very, as I mentioned, it's very helpful to the structure. It's the perspective of influence rather than direct reporting, which I think is a very important part of what we're doing. And the DEI part is there too.
And Laura's not a direct report though, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Nor is she an indirect, I guess, in the same sense. There's a line that goes through Matt. Amy doesn't have that one.
And does Amy report to Matt?
No.
No.
Okay.
Well, just Laura.
Okay,
Amy is the department.
okay. Yeah, I mean, it's, I think was, you know, early on raised Chief Clark. I think he is, an important voice to include in this, so I'm glad to hear that we have consensus in favor of that. It's a tough decision between Amy and Laura, you know, for different reasons. But I do think that, you know, they both have really important roles. I think about the budget line item, for, Amy's department, and her head, you know, her head count of staff, both being a bit larger, so that tips me over slightly to Amy.
Okay, I served with Amy last time, she performed admirably, she's great and happy to have considered Laura. She's a valuable, very valuable asset, and so, but I'm happy to vote for Chief Clark and Amy Lannon.
So, yeah, go ahead.
I'm not in the position to not make it unanimous in this kind of instance. Everybody obviously for the town is here, you know, for the right reasons to support others in the town and they just happen to live here, et cetera. So I have no problem with changing it, Laura to Amy in my scenario. I just think that in the future, even to my own detriment, I've never really acknowledged Laura as being, other than the best at what she does clearly in Massachusetts, but we never appoint her to anything. So I'd just like in the future for us to just to be cognizant of that next time things come up, because she really is overlooked, unfortunately. But I have no issue with going with Amy as well. It's not that, you know what I mean? Same thing with Chief Burns. It's we're gonna end up in the same place wherever we are, February, March, wherever it is. It's gonna come regardless of who we put on here. So I'm happy to go with that.
Okay, do we need a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just make a motion. If this doesn't have a majority, then we make another motion. So move to appoint Chief Clark and Library Director Amy Lannon to the Town Manager Screening Committee.
Thanks, Karen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mark. All those in favor? Opposed?
Very opposed.
Very close.
We're 4-1, so thank you for that. And again, we'll interview the at-large candidates on Wednesday, November 29th, and we'll vote on them on our next meeting. on December 5th, which is also our last regular meeting of the year. Okay, so should we take a 5-minute recess before we discuss the acting town manager?
Sure.
Okay, so if we could please be back at 10 o'clock sharp. Thank you. we have just discussion, we do have one more meeting on December 5th to vote on it. I'll just say off the bat that I think Matt Cornelis would make a great acting town manager, and so I'm in favor of Matt. Other comments or questions or ideas from the board? Chris?
Thanks, Jackie. It's the same thing I just mentioned about Laura. Matt's been here forever, same scenario. I'm always in favor of promoting from within, you know what I mean? They put their time in, that's just the way that it goes. And Matt's been here and, yeah, I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer with that, so, thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Mark?
So just to clarify just for a second, so it's not a promotion that's taking place
Oh, yeah, I
here.
know. It's still, you know,
Right, it's a recognition, I think, that, and Jackie, you said it just right. I think that he would do very well as acting town manager, and if we do vote that, I think that there's some transition activities we need to discuss soon.
Sure.
Carlo or Karen? Carlo?
I'm good, as long as it's 70 hours a week, I'm good.
I'm here, right?
You have to give us your cell phone number. I'm not sure if I have yours yet.
I think you have.
Okay, all right.
Sure, right now.
Thank you. All right.
Well, so we didn't have the vote on the calendar, we will keep that December 5th, but it sounds like we've got some good consensus and we can hopefully move pretty soon after that vote to work through some transition details, so thank you.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
Okay, so next item is discuss and vote on the town manager position statement. So Bernie mentioned this when he met with us at our last meeting. It starts on page 58 of the packet and basically goes through facts and figures about where we are, some of our great financial metrics and some of the things that we want to see in our new town manager, both with respect to managing things like town meeting and financial and budgetary issues, keeping some of the keeping the economic development going, including shepherding us through MBTA communities, of course, working closely with Superintendent Dr. Milichevsky and the public schools especially, but not limited to the construction of the new Killam. And we've got some of the current projects in a bullet pointed list on page 60 of the packet. I know the select board members have provided some comments on this. Do board members have any comments or questions about this statement they want to raise here? Mark?
Just one small one, on page 2 of the document under finances, under RMLD, I had suggested, but it didn't get put into here, the sentence just above where it says there's a desire for appropriate economic development, just above that, it talks about town manager needs to work collaboratively with the RMLD, which is an asset for the community, and provides approximately 1.55 million in an annual pilot agreement, or an annual pilot payment either way, just the notion, but it's a small nit, but it's an annual payment that we're getting from RMLD.
It's not the total payment either. The total payment
Yeah,
is
it's
like
actually,
almost 2.5, so.
it's the pilot agreement plus,
I don't even know if that needs to be in there.
So, I mean, could we,
Most pilots are annual.
understood, but doesn't, right, but could also be not.
so Fidel, do you have that figure handy? Did you get it? Unfortunately, Greg. Yeah.
So the other one is not, the other one is a formula, right?
Yeah,
So
it's
it
above the
varies
line and below the line, it depends
Exactly.
on how much they sell, the pilot, it's an acronym for a payment in lieu of taxes. And it's a dorky.
Yeah, if it's understood in a dorky sense as
All pilots are
as annual, then
I'm not
take
even
back my
sure,
comment.
like, what are we trying to convey? It is, the largest MLP either by revenue or by customers, and Greg did tell us he serves about 100,000 customers tonight. Would that be better to put in there? But what are we trying to, I mean, $2.5 million on our budget means it's like important, but like who cares? But we have a municipal light company that serves 100,000 customers, is 4 towns. That'd be just a better thing to put in there. I missed that the first time around, I apologize.
So could we say which is an asset for the community and serves approximately 100,000 customers in Reading, Wilmington, North Reading, and Linfield Center?
Instead of just the 29, yeah.
All good.
Or in the territory.
Yeah, or in its, yeah,
So now you're just listing other.
yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
In its
Other
territory.
towns that shall not be
Yeah.
named, yeah, so maybe it's
We're also looking for
Put that
town
in
managers,
parentheses.
so yeah, let's not mention
so
those.
which is an asset for the community and provides, you know, and asset for the community and serves approximately 100,000 customers.
Yes.
Trying to get neighboring communities.
Sunny, thanks.
Well, I mean, trying to get this amended now so that we
Yeah.
can get it, yeah,
I mean, mentioning Wilmington, not mentioning anything.
right. Okay, other questions or comments on this?
No, I got mine added.
So
That ideal candidate list is really long.
Makes them ideal.
Okay. Just wanna make sure we don't scare anyone.
is there a motion?
Move to approve the town manager position statement as amended.
Second.
Thanks, Karen, and thanks, Mark. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Opposed, 5-0. Great, thank you, and Bernie can get this out into the marketplace. Okay, so future agenda items, including 2024 meeting schedule. So in terms of next meeting, it's pretty robust. We've got a change of manager, a vote to approve the liquor licenses annually. I've asked Cato to come before us. They've been working for some time now on a proposal regarding activities to honor and recognize Bill Russell, so they're coming before just for discussion. We'll vote on the appointment of the acting town manager. We'll also need to add, Fidel, please vote on at-large community members to town manager screening committee. Do we know whether the vote on lot 5 will be?
We do not know yet, I don't think that it will be though.
Do we want to have conservation's vote first?
It needs to be before December 4th.
Okay, so I think we can't make December 5th. It's closer, but not. Do we know when conservation, do we know if they're meeting again?
December, I don't think they're the holdup.
No, I'm just thinking of sequencing. So they're probably after December 5th, so I don't think it's December 5th.
Okay. Other items for next meeting? Yeah.
Oh, not next meeting, just under future agendas, I didn't see the discussion about moving the election to May, or however that gets worked, unless I'm missing it.
You mean in future years?
Yes, correct.
So just to round out the rest of the year, we have departmental budget presentations on December 6th and 12th. I think probably before the end of the year, I know things are very busy, but some of the agenda items kind of in the to-do list could probably be culled through. I know Chris brought up a good point last week or last time about do we really still need the Airbnb? Is that which I believe is that's on there anymore.
I don't think it's on there.
It's a good but it isn't on there anymore, but a good example of that. If there's, I mean, I don't see any just in scanning, cause these are all still ongoing things. In terms of, did you have?
No, I just wanted to mention it, you know about it, but it's not gonna happen for the 5th, obviously, we're trying to get Edge to a meeting and have a joint meeting with SWEC. To have them present.
It's just the
An RFI.
RFI, thank you.
Yeah, and that's sooner, yeah. We meet twice in January, so the 2024, thank you for adding that. That starts at page 63, and I just double checked, none of them are like on a holiday, on a federal holiday, or right near. So hopefully it's, it works, but it's, please just check it, but maybe we can, Carla, put that on the 9th and the 23rd.
Yeah, we're trying to, Fidel and I are working on that.
One other item is Nancy Ziemlak asked me if the Council on Aging could present in January.
On just an update?
Yeah, an update. So I told her tentatively January 9th. Others?
I was just going to ask, I was looking through my emails, could we make sure that Arbor Day, you're probably just about to put out a 6-month schedule. Last year, the Trails and the Conservation Commission asked us to re-up Arbor Day because it helps with grants for DCR. And I just thought, we'll forget it, we should just make sure it's on our schedule for May. So I was just looking.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's,
Is it already on
always
there?
is. Yes,
Oh,
it
okay,
always is.
alright, thank you.
Yeah.
And that's the proclamation with the Arbor
That's
Day?
exactly what I meant to say, thank you.
Oh, I think, Susan, I think we should get, not our agenda item, but maybe some me, I'm the conservation liaison, to make sure they have a meeting about the treasures.
Yes.
I think that would go before zoning, right? It'd be them first.
That's all but that, Chuck is, I mean,
It's on the meeting.
we can't tell a property owner what to do.
No, but I think
What you want to do.
conservation at least weigh on it, weigh in
I don't think
on
we can
it.
tell them what to do either.
I'm not telling them what to do, I'm saying, from what he indicated, that, he's not speaking for them, that it could be maybe, or whatever, could be okay, but, and then someone else mentioned zoning, and that's the permitting part of it, not so much I think the conservation outweighs the permitting, to me.
But
Conservation says no, and permitting says yes.
CBA works on reviews an application, right? Not provides comment on a potential.
Wouldn't CBDC go to them first?
It depends on what the request is, I guess.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna suggest, I think they need a little guidance in terms of what would be a good process to take forward, to not spin their wheels and go to
We
A
need to
and
know the
not B.
process too.
I don't think
What's
it's,
the best process?
what's the best process to guide them
Yeah,
forward so
yes.
that they can then get the
Yeah,
appropriate
that's-
approvals and come back
that's
to
what I'm
us to
getting
get,
at, right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Who is the right person to help them with the process, I guess is the question. Maybe what we need is, I don't think it's a meeting, I almost wondered, Fidel, if somebody in the town can kind of just help guide. If you were gonna do this, here's what you might try.
I nominate Matt.
Yeah, me too.
It's also
Second.
the ombudsman, so yeah.
That's a good idea, yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
said, I don't speak that well sometimes, and that's what I want. What I'd like to see happen, because, she seemed amenable to that, obviously at her expense. And it would be the ball rolling.
I agree. Okay, and maybe just to, clear it out, wrap it up with a bow for the next meeting, if you have other items for kind of that recurring list, let's try to, we can always add them, but let's try to add more next week for next year. I think we have one set of minutes only to approve
Yeah, just one sec.
from November fourth? Seventh. Caitlin, did you receive any edits to the minutes starting at page 65?
I did not.
Thank you. Others have edits?
Let me check one more time. I thought I was good, but
The only edit I have on the bottom of page 65, introduction of Director of Equity, his name is Albert, not Robert Fuss.
good catch.
I will change that.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Oh, I know what it was. In the liaison report where we talked about ongoing electrical issues at Reading Woods and RMLD is working on it, we don't wanna imply that it is an RMLD issue because you know what, let's just take out the part of RMLD is working on it, alright? We'll ongoing electrical issues at Reading Woods or staff and RMLD are
aware.
Investigating, researching.
working with the property owners. Supporting the property owners in this, in finding a solution. That's what they're doing, okay. Okay, so let's see, RFD and RMLD are supporting the property owners in looking for a solution. And then, okay, so I guess I got interrupted in the middle of this. Instead of Killam School Building Committee met last week, although, when was this? This was November 7th.
Yeah, they met the first week in November.
And they met on October 30th. Oh, okay, what I was reporting on, I was actually reporting on the MSBA. So let's swap out Killam School Building Committee for MSBA Designer Panel, met last week. And the Killam School Building Committee received 4 submissions for designer services. It's a little bit closer to what we were communicating.
Got it.
Thank you.
Any other amendments? Karen, Mark, anything else? Okay, so is there a motion?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes from November 7th as amended.
Thanks, Karen. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, 5-0. Thank you very much. And so with that, we'll adjourn or head into executive session rather to vote on collective bargaining agreements. So, yeah. Okay, right. Yes. It's here somewhere.
Sorry, hang on a sec. There it is, okay. Move that the board go into executive session, including staff members Fidel Maltez, David Clark, Christine Amendola, Matt Canales, Sharon Angstrom, Sean Donahue and Caitlin Nocella to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and approve contracts with the local 1640 Reading Police Supervisory Officers Association, IBPO, Reading Facilities Maintenance Workers and Town Custodians, AFF's CME Council 93, Local 1703, Mass Cop Local 191A, Reading Public Safety Dispatchers. Further, the chair declares that an open meeting could have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the body, and the board will not reconvene in open session.
Thanks, Karen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mark. So we'll do a roll call vote, I believe. So Karen,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Carla,
Yes.
Chris, Jackie, yes. Okay, so we'll move into executive session. Thank you.